Hello, everyone. Welcome to the live stream, or welcome to the live stream replay if you're watching this on the replay. So we are getting things ready. We're about 10 minutes before we start. I'm just getting the room set up. We've got recordings going here, recordings going there. I'm saying this so that not necessarily for your benefit, but for mine. I've already done the podcast intros, so you missed that. That's exciting. The only place you're going to be able to hear the podcast intros is on the podcast. I'm not sure that's exactly what everyone's shooting for, though, for their best possible entertainment value. We are doing Network Plus Study Group today, so we'll get started shortly. If you're watching this on the replay, you can fast forward a bit. If you're watching this live on the YouTube side, you may want to come over to the live chat, which is at professormesser.com/live. It is not on YouTube. YouTube does not have a live chat. They do have a live chat. I don't use their live chat. There, clarification for you. So that's there's many reasons why. It's a number of things going on there that would cause that to be the reason. Okay, we've got messages and tweets going out automatically at 5 minutes till. We've got the website banner will go up at 5 minutes till. We're recording. I think we're ready. I have questions. We're going to do questions and answers today for Network Plus. All the details of how to find all of those things that I talk about, the chat, the Q&A, is all at professormesser.com/live. If you're watching this in the replay, there's not going to be anything live there. And there might be a replay there, but there won't be a live Q&A. So I apologize for that. Let's turn the air conditioner on, though. It's cold. I don't say it's cold outside. Baby, it's cold outside. What is it? It's 57 degrees Fahrenheit outside right now. I guess the high today, 61. But I can't open the door because that will make noise and disturb everyone. So I have to turn on the air conditioner even though it's 60 degrees outside. So we're going to do that and cool it down because it's a little coolant. It's a little warm in here. It's warming up now. The lights are on. Before you got here, the lights weren't on. It was great. Now that you're here, all the lights are on. Let's do a camera check. How are we on the camera there? It's just going to have to be that way. I'm shooting a course right now, so I don't want to change that camera. That's not bad, though. That's okay, right? That's okay. Yeah, that's all right. This is gripping content for the podcast, by the way. Oh, we need Pinpoint. We need the little the thing that does the stuff. Let's do that. Let's turn on the Pinpoint. There we go. And now, when you look at this, it has a little highlighter. See, that's so nice. Let's do the Pinpoint over on the laptop too. I don't think that app is really being updated lately. I'm going to have to find a replacement. Boy, that's not very gripping content there. Let's see. Are we got Pinpoint there? Yes. So the number 4 there. That works great. Okay. This is working. It's working. Hello, Tennessee. Alpha with McKinn over in Alpha. Oregon is here. Mississippi. Tampa, Florida. Mexico City. Hola, ¿cómo está? There is a nice international contingent that tends to show up, so that's good. That's always nice. I have no idea if you understand a word I'm saying, but there it is. Anyway, we'll do some Q&A. We'll see how well you do. Kansas City is here. Phoenix, Arizona. So that's good too. Did I not turn on the air conditioner? I did not. There we go. Thank you, Nest. I'm always concerned Nest is going to take over at some point. Alaska's back here. Hello, welcome back, Alaska. That's okay. It's delayed. Why did it change? I changed it and it changed back. It's one of those things. Yes, Nest has sort of taken over, quite honestly. It's a bit idiosyncratic. It's a bit has its own idea of how things should go. Your EPA, Welcome. But it's for the most part, Nest is just fine. They're all just fine. They're all bad. Everything Internet of Things is bad. That's it. There's Massachusetts, Boston, Worcester. Every Internet of Things definitely is questionable. Namibia. Why do I do that? I put too many letters into words. Is it an old guy thing? I think it is. I think that's what my dad does. It's one of those things. Now I've become that. Ohio. Welcome. It's plenty of Network Plus today. For those of you wondering, what in the world are we doing here? It's Network Plus. I got some good Network Plus questions for you. I like the performance-based question today is good. And I say that because I wrote it. So that's sort of, I could do that. But I like it. I was going over normally I don't go over the questions prior to the study group. Normally I write them sometimes weeks in advance, and by the time I'm sitting here in this chair, I don't remember what I did. So every question is new to me. I'm having to answer the question myself because I don't remember what it was there. So it will we'll do that. No, we don't want to talk about layer 3 switches. See, Lord Thor there knows that's a particularly sensitive topic in the chat room. So don't do that. I shouldn't admit what? That this is all new to me? Well, we'll see how I do. If I get a question wrong, you'll know why. So that's why this works. Yes, layer 3 switches. It's one of my pet peeves. One of my don't like 'ems. There's 3 minutes to go. 3 minutes to go, Mr. Sinatra. We'll be ready in 3 minutes. And then of course we devolve into a conversation of let routers route and let switches switch and let firewalls firewall. And then we get to have an argument about that. So I guess that's a good thing to argue about. If you're going to pick something, that's what we'll argue about for those things. If you're trying to figure out how to attend the live Q&A, all of the details and everything you need to know is professormesser.com/live. The details are on that page. If you are on YouTube and watching this on a YouTube domain, if it says youtube.com at the top, then you don't see the chat room that I'm talking to, and you think I'm a crazy man. Well, you can think that anyway, but I'm actually talking to people. That is also at professormesser.com/live. And there's a link at the top that tells you there's a live thing going on right now. So click this and then you can watch the live stuff. So that's good. Birmingham's here. Welcome. I spent way too much time at the Apple Store in Birmingham. Way too much. Got a lot going on today. I got a lot going on this weekend. There's just stuff going on. It's one of those weeks where everything is happening. We're getting up to Thanksgiving here in the United States. My kinfolk in Canada already had theirs last month. Their Thanksgiving. Missed it. But there you go. We got plenty to do. There's family coming over, so there's all these things you have to do. You have to prepare. You have to get things in order. I'm not very good at getting things in order. I've been spending too much time at night on the Xbox. I should do less of that and more of actual work. That's the idea. Welcome, UK. The United Kingdom is checking in. Thank you for being here. There's a lot that I have to do as well. Mrs. Professor Messer has given me a list, and I have plenty to do, I assure you. But there's like third parties that have to show up at the house. This person has to come and do this. This person has to come and do this other thing. So that type of thing. So, yeah, this is the details for Socrative, professormesser.com/live, and I'll give you the Socrative info as we get in there. Don't worry. You'll know everything there for that. Don't worry. We'll get there. But it's time now to actually do a study group. So let's do one, everybody. Here we go. The Network Plus study group starts right now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the November 2018 Professor Messer Network Plus Study Group from the Messer Studios World Headquarters in Tallahassee, Florida. Thank you for joining us. My name is James Messer. I'll be your host for this first hour of questions and answers relating to the Network Plus certification from CompTIA. After that, we just open up the phone lines. Not really a study group, more of you calling in. I guess it could be a study group if you have study group questions, but I'll open up the phone lines afterwards and you can ask me a question about practically anything. It doesn't have to be about Network Plus. It certainly can be. It can be about anything you would like. So welcome. Thank you for being here. We got plenty of questions for you. I was explaining in the chat room earlier that I don't necessarily know what got in my throat. I don't necessarily know the questions prior to us doing them, except I wrote the questions. So I had to go back and look at the questions before this. I forget them very quickly, minutes after I write them, apparently. So we're all going to be learning this together. There's the benefit. We'll all figure out those details as we go through this. Thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting the site. Thank you for watching the videos. And of course, if you want to follow what's going on here, you can always follow at professormesser.com/Twitter. And perhaps more importantly, and you hear this every time someone does a video on YouTube because it's important, professormesser.com/YouTube, and subscribing to that gets the eyeballs of Google. It gets the eyeballs of the folks at YouTube that is owned by Google. And so it helps us as we're building more videos and putting them online. If we have questions, if we have problems, if we need help, they're able to help us because you subscribed and they know that you support us, so they should support us as well. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you for subscribing. Thank you for your support as well. There is, of course, all of my Network Plus courses out there for you to look at, and go to professormesser.com and see all of the videos. Every video, every minute, absolutely free. It's not behind a paywall. You don't have to register. I don't want your email. You can just watch them. If you want an offline version, you can even buy an offline version that includes video, audio, my course notes. I send you a physical version of my course notes. I save video content in PDF. I actually send you the physical course notes now with the Network Plus course. Find out all about that at professormesser.com/getnetplus. N-E-T, get N-E-T-P-L-U-S, not a plus sign, but P-L-U-S. Although I should probably put a plus sign on there, and then you'd be able to find that page. There is also Network Plus questions on the website. So you can find those at professormesser.com/popquiz. We take all the questions we do in the study group and we put them online. So you can find all of those as well. There's quite a few there. As we do more study groups, we put more questions there. So a lot of you are wondering, where's the rest of the questions? We're getting there. We put them out there as we go through them so that you're able to go back and review all of those things and figure out the details. Also, podcasts are available of this particular study group. If you'd like an audio version of this study group, you go to professormesser.com/podcast, and you can subscribe to your RSS feeders, viewer, reader, listener, catcher right there on that site, or play it right from that page. So if you want to grab the RSS and subscribe that way, or watch it right there, that's fine. So all of those things are very useful. Let's fix a few things right now before we get started. There, that was easy. Let's talk about what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about the N10007 exam. And there is, if you're planning to take the exam, a possibility you can get a maximum of 90 questions over a 90-minute time frame. So it's a pretty tight exam. You have to definitely be ready for the exam so that you're able to rush through everything that's there. We'll talk about some strategies about that today. It's mainly multiple choice questions, but you could also get performance-based questions, and I'll talk to you about what performance-based questions are as we go through everything that we're going to do here. I've got some performance-based questions for you here, so you'll be able to do that. There is a way that you can participate, though. If you are watching this live, this doesn't work for replay, you can go to professormesser.com/QA and just open up a new window, and you'll be able to answer the questions right there on that page. If you are using the Socrative student app, you may be asked for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. So you can absolutely make that happen. So all of those things. And it'll work regardless of what you're doing. Folks in the chat room, if you are having any type of video problems, I send everything to YouTube and YouTube sends it to you. So if you're having any video issues, it's between you and YouTube at this point. I recommend maybe trying a different browser, maybe trying a different internet connection, because I just send a single stream out. It's like magic, isn't it? It's amazing that it works every time. Let's see if your Socrative is working. I have a question for you right now, and it's right there on the screen. Here's what we call the study group rewind question that asks which of the following would commonly be categorized as an EGP. And if you are in Socrative, you went to professormesser.com/QA, you can see that possible answers are BGP, SMTP, OSPF, SSL, and MAC. That is, which of the following would be commonly categorized as an EGP? There's a lot of abbreviations in this question. Possible answers are BGP, SMTP, OSPF, SSL, and MAC. If you know the answer, you think you know the answer, I think we can, and matter of fact, on my side, I get to see you putting in the answers as we're doing it. So it updates on my screen in real time. So a lot of you have already answered this one. This is a question from last month. So if you were here last month, this should look pretty familiar to you. You should know the answer to this one straight away. And no Googling the answers. And also no answering in the chat room, please. That way we're able to all guess together of what it happens to be. What would commonly be categorized as an EGP? 61% of you says BGP. So that's one of those where I think it always helps. If you're ever working through what you want to do, try to break out what you know it isn't. For example, SMTP, the Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, maybe you know that couldn't possibly be an EGP, because we should know at this point that EGP is an exterior gateway protocol, and that is one of those things. And by the way, if you are watching this particular video stream on YouTube or you're watching on my site, you're actually getting the same stream. There's no difference in whether you're watching on YouTube or whether you're watching the embedded video at professormesser.com/live. You are literally getting that stream from YouTube. I don't send you a stream. That makes it easy. So now you know how to troubleshoot all of these crazy video issues that could show up on your system. BGP is one of the very, very common exterior gateway protocols you'd run into. If you have an internet connection and you're not statically routing, then you're probably using BGP. Very, very common for that to happen. So that's one of those that you will run into from time to time. And certainly for Network Plus, you need to know the difference between an interior gateway protocol and an exterior gateway protocol. And it's useful if you know some examples of both of those and how they're used. So hopefully you're one of the people that did answer A, BGP. 63% of you got that one right. That makes sense to me. That's one of those that whenever you start working through all of these problems that you're going to run into on the exam, this is what you want to focus on, is which ones are right, which ones couldn't it possibly be. SMTP is not a routing protocol. SSL is not a routing protocol. The media access control layer, not a routing protocol. OSPF is a routing protocol, but commonly categorized as IGP, interior gateway protocol. The only possible answer is indeed A, BGP. So well done. As I mentioned, if you're in the chat room, folks are trying to figure out which is the best way to watch the video. Should I watch it on the website? Should I watch it on YouTube? It makes no difference. It's literally exactly the same. So if for those of you trying to figure out, should I go to the website? Should I go to YouTube? Go where you would like. Go where you feel happy. That's all I care about, is that you get access to all of these things and being able to find exactly what you're looking for. So maybe that will help you as well. What I would like to do right now is give you an example of a performance-based question. When you first sit down on your exam, you're ready to work through all of these questions. You sit down, you've gotten in the room, you've gone through the registration, the adrenaline's going, you're nervous, you sit down. The first questions that you're going to get are not going to be multiple choice. You're going to get a handful of questions that are effectively, they are anything but multiple choice. They might be fill in the blank. They might be having you match different things. They might be a drag and drop. They could be having you put things in order from highest to lowest or fastest to slowest. You never exactly know what you're going to run into on these questions. What I like to do for the very first question of the study group is give you an example of a performance-based question and see if you can answer this. So I have one for you, and this one, kind of a drag and drop, kind of a matching kind of question. So let's get to the performance-based question. Here it is. The question asks, match the wire map to the function. So I'm showing you, for those of you listening to the podcast, this is going to be a question that you're not going to be able to work through because it's more of a visual daily double. But this visual question shows 4 different wire maps, and it has 4 different functions. Function A is test an interface for physical errors. Answer B, function B is connect a desktop to a switch. Function C is manage a switch out of band. And function D is connect 2 switches together. And then I've got 4 wire maps here. So it's a 1-to-1, thankfully. That made it a little bit easier to have a 1-to-1 option. But there is 1-to-1 here, and you should be able to batch these up specifically. Notice I'm not asking you what these are, because the exam probably isn't going to ask you what these are either. A lot of people focus on memorizing. They think I need to memorize and have trivia in my head, which can be helpful for questions like this. But questions like this expect you to go to the next step. Once you've memorized what these wire maps are, what do you use them for? Most of the exam is that way. Most of the exam asks you, what do you use these for? And I think this is a pretty good one to ask you what you use these for as well. A number of you are putting these in. This is a matching question, or drag and drop, or draw a line, or however you'd like to do it. On the online answer, it's a fill in the blank, because there is no matching online. There's no way to do that online. So fill in the blank yourself to those. I'm getting a number of options coming in. A number of you, I think, I'm going to go through and see if I can remember what they are. Number 1. What is number 1 again? Okay, I think I know that one. Number 2, I know that one. Number 3, I know that one. Number 4, I got that one too. Okay. Remember how I said I forget these right after I write them? I forgot this one right after I wrote it. But as it turns out, a lot of you weren't familiar with this either. A lot of you are trying to figure out these wire maps right now. I can see, because I see the number of responses that are coming in, and I see what you're typing in for all of these. Now, it's not a 1-to-1. If you think the answers are perfectly matched, that would be 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D. Makes it easy to type in. So that last one is a 4. That last one, my big head is in the way. See, that's number 4 right there. That's one. That's one. I didn't take my big head into account whenever this talking head up in the corner. So that's one you should have been able to figure out though. 1, 2, 3, and 4. I didn't cover up what the actual wires that were though. So you should be able to figure those pieces out. Let's see how well you know matching the wire map to the function. Let's step through these very quickly. Let's start with number 1. Number 1 is wires that go from, it looks like 1 to 3, 2 to 6, 3 to 1, 4 to 7, 5 to 8, 6 to 2, 7 to 4, and 8 to 5. That should help folks that are listening in on the podcast. What is that? Well, that should look very familiar. That is a crossover cable, and a crossover cable is used very commonly to connect 2 switches together. So that of the 4 things that are here, that's really the only thing you would use a crossover cable for, is to connect 2 devices together, connect 2 switches together, connect 2 routers together. You would connect like devices to each other with a crossover cable. Very common to do that. So let's look at the second wire map. Is everything is mapped straight across. So pin 1 goes to pin 1, 2 goes to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4, 5 to 5, and etc. all the way down. That's patch cable. So you would use that patch cable for answer B, to connect the desktop to a switch. Very common to connect the desktop to a switch with a patch cable. And that's exactly the wires. If you looked at one side and you looked at the other side, you'll see they are exactly 1 to 1, 2 to 2, 3 to 3, 4 to 4. So very common to see that. Let's look at the third one, which is a little bit weird. That one doesn't connect any pins to the other side. That one connects pins to itself. Pin 1 is connected to pin 3 on the same side. Pin 2 is connected to pin 6 on the same side. Pin 4 is connected to pin 7 on the same side. And pin 5 is connected to pin 8 on the same side. That's a loop back. We're taking the signal and we're sending it back to ourselves every time. And if we're doing that, then we're trying to test an interface for physical errors. Very common to do that on serial connections, Ethernet connections, any type of network connection where you want to send a signal out and see if you're receiving the signal properly. It's a great way to test and make sure that a system is both sending data properly and receiving data properly. If you're running into errors on a network link and you're wondering where these errors are occurring, that's the test you want to run, is a loopback. So that's exactly where you go. So the last one, well, there's only one left. And the last one shows pins 1 through 8 that are exactly swapped. So 1 goes to 8, 8 goes to 1, and all of the ones in the middle are also swapped that way. 2 goes to 7, 3 goes to 6, 4 to 5, etc., etc. That's a rollover cable. A rollover cable commonly used. You can't see the answer there because my head's in the way. There you go. The rollover cable, very commonly used to manage a switch out of band. So there is the 4 wire maps and their functions. Hopefully you're familiar with those. Some folks in the chat room says the book they're using doesn't mention wire maps at all. Well, you need to go to the exam objectives. The CompTIA exam objectives will tell you exactly the things you need to know. I don't know why the books don't stick to the exam objectives so much. There's some books that they go off the scope of the exam objectives. They don't include things that are in the exam objectives. I don't know. Maybe they just forgot to put them in. I have no idea, but these topics are in the exam objectives. So make sure you get those exam objectives. You can download them from professormesser.com/objectives or go to the Google machine, type in CompTIA exam objectives and download the objectives for the Network Plus N10007 exam. So if you don't know or don't recognize any of these wire maps, make sure you go do that because that's going to be pretty important to have that there. Let's go to another question. Finally, we're done with the performance-based questions, thankfully. So now let's do a multiple choice question, something we're familiar with. If we are absolutely going through our exam, we're going to get a lot of multiple choice questions. And here is our first multiple choice question of the day that asks, what layer of the OSI model would be most associated with a network switch? What layer of the OSI model would be most associated with a network switch? And you don't get to really choose in this case. We know the OSI model has 7 layers. I have 7 answers for you. Guess what they are? Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, layer 4, layer 5, layer 6, layer 7, in that order. So this is almost like a fill in the blank. This is really not a multiple choice question, is it? So that's one where whenever you're trying to break through these different things, maybe that's one that we can write in and say, maybe it is a type of performance-based question. It is right there on the line of what this is. If you think you know what the answer is, go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can answer that question straight away. Please no hints in the chat room about the question. No answers in the chat room of what you think it is. This is one that deals specifically with the OSI model. The OSI model certainly a big part, very well documented in the CompTIA Network Plus exam objectives. I get emails all the time for people asking, why are we learning the OSI model? This sounds like an old thing. Well, it's not even real. It's a model. Is this something we should be doing? So that's this particular question. And the OSI model in general, we use it all the time. It's not antiquated. It's not, it's absolutely something. In fact, when I was a systems engineer and doing next generation firewalls and talking to people every day, we would reference the OSI model multiple times in a single meeting because it's a way that everybody can communicate and know exactly what you're talking about. So if you say something is at layer 1, they know what you're talking about. If you say something is at layer 7, they know exactly what you're talking about. So there's the important part of what we're doing. So this is a good one. So this is one where we get to talk a little bit about terminology because this question is very, very specific. And although it says most associated with network switch, there's only one answer here. It's not even a question. There's only one specific answer associated with this, and hopefully you folks know what it is. Let's see if you do. We're going to flip over and see how you answered. 58% of you chose layer 2, 22% of you chose layer 3, and then single digits for everything else. Everything is really focused on layer 2 and layer 3. But we got 56%. We got a majority at layer 2. Is that really the right answer for a network switch? How does a network switch operate anyway? How do all of these things operate? Well, let's talk about this particular layer that we're going to focus on is layer 2, the data link layer. We're talking about a network switch. So there's your important piece of information from this question is we're talking about switching. And if you know anything about switches and their operation and the way they work, we know that switches make forwarding decisions based on the MAC address that's going across the network, really the destination MAC address that's inside of the frames going back and forth over the network. So this is where, whenever you start breaking out all of these different ways that devices operate, you need to absolutely understand that switches examine traffic based on their layer 2 MAC address. We know that routers examine traffic and make forwarding decisions based on layer 3 IP addresses, that type of thing. There is no such thing as a hybrid switch with router capabilities. There is such a thing as a switch that also has routing software inside of it that can also route, but it's not hybrid. There's a part of the switch that does switching. There's a completely different section of the switch that does routing. There's no such thing as a switch that routes. There's no such thing as a router that switches. So just keep that in mind. You're going to hear terms, the industry is going to throw terms at you like layer 3 switch. What that is a device where part of that device has a switching engine. The other part of that device has a completely different engine that's not related to switching that does routing. There's no such thing as a cross-layer device. There's no such thing. That doesn't work that way. It's not like you turn a switch on and now the switch can operate as a router, because no, the switch is still switching. The router's still routing. And we're not even going to go down any more of that horrible hole that I fall into with layer 3 switching, because there is, you just have to keep in mind for your exam and for everything you're doing, a layer 3 switch is a device that has a switching engine on half of it and a routing switch on another half of it. Those two sides don't talk to each other. Those two sides don't interoperate with each other. The router can take traffic and send it back over to the switching side, but the engines are completely separate. It's not like you turn a switch on and you turn it into a layer 3 switch and it operates differently. It does not. That's not the way a layer 3 switch operates. And so whenever you see the term switch, it always refers to layer 2. Whenever you hear the term router, it always refers to layer 3. And if you ever hear the term a multi-layer switch or a layer 3 switch, it's a device that can part of it do a layer 2 and part of it do a layer 3. So pretty important to keep that in mind. That's where you get into challenges with terminology in our industry, and you have to have people parse things out for you. So keep that in mind. So in the chat room, here's an example of how these problems occur, is that somebody says, so my basic home router, the wireless router you have that's in your home, is that a layer 3 switch? Would it be considered a layer 3 switch? No, it's not. Because we don't call it one. This is the problem with the term layer 3 switch. It's completely a marketing term. It has nothing to do with anything but marketing. It is doing switching. It is doing routing. But as far as the industry is concerned, we don't call those layer 3 switches. We call them SOHO wireless routers. So don't make this more complicated than the industry has already made it for you. So if you answered layer 2, this is how switches operate. That is the right answer. That is the piece that you need to know. A layer 2 switch. So that's, is that confusing? Yes, it is. That is horribly, horribly, horribly confusing. The industry has made it that way. I'm so sorry. Whenever you work through those pieces and trying to figure that out. And we can talk in the post show about, but wait, I heard that layers 5 through 7 are pointless. They're not. Every layer of the OSI model has a particular function. It has a particular reference. We use these references all the time in the industry. There's not a lot of ambiguity here. We know exactly where devices and protocols tend to operate in the OSI model. So that's what you need to know as far as the OSI model is concerned. Let's do another question. Let's get away from the OSI model, shall we? We've talked enough about that. We can do a different question. So here's another multiple choice question for you that asks, a network administrator needs to create an Ethernet connection to a remote building that is 250 meters away. Which of the following would be the best standard for this network? Would it be A, 1000 base 250? Would it be B, 1000 base LX? Would it be C, 1000 base T? Would it be D, 1000 base SX? Or would it be E, 1000 base TX? Shouldn't have said A, B, C, D, or E. There's too many abbreviations here. A network administrator needs to create an Ethernet connection to a remote building that is 250 miles away. Which of the following would be the best standard for this network? Would it be 1000 base 250, 1000 base LX, 1000 base T, 1000 base SX, or 1000 base TX? Maybe you know. Maybe you have it. Maybe it's there. If you think you know the answer, be sure to have a look at what's there. No mentions in the chat room, no hints in the chat room, no details in the chat room. We want to be able to figure this out. A lot of you are doing some Googling. Don't Google. Take a guess. It's got to be one of those answers, right? It's got to be something we can do with this one. All of these, almost all of these are real standards. Maybe some of them are not a real standard. This is going to throw you off even more. Like, what is that? You do run into that sometimes on an exam where they throw one of those answers in and you're like, that's not a real thing. So you should be able to cross that one off, which gives you now 4 to work with. I always give you 5 answers on my questions just to make it a little harder. On your exam, you'll probably get 4 answers to choose from. Sometimes there's more, especially if it's a question where you're choosing 2. Sometimes they'll ask you, choose 2. They'll say the question. They'll tell you need to choose 2 of these. Sometimes they'll put 5 or 6 possibilities down. So it makes it a little more difficult. Network administrator needs to create an Ethernet connection to a remote building that is 250 meters away. Which of the following would be the best standard for this network? We don't know. We do not know. Because, I know this, as we're showing the answers, we have effectively a 4-way tie. We have maybe B, 1000 base LX is a little bit higher by 4 percentage points. We have a 28%, 24%, 21%, and 21% on B, C, D, and E. Only 6% of you chose 1000 base 250, which is not a real answer. So that's whenever you start getting into, is that real or not? It's not. So I'm sorry, the 6% of you that chose 1000 base 250, it's not a real thing. Sounds like it could be. You sort of wish that it was, since we're dealing with a building that's 250 meters away. But you'll notice we have a problem here. This building being 250 meters away is farther than the copper standards for Ethernet. So you do run into this particular problem. Is that now what are we going to do with these pieces? There is, of course, an answer here we should work through and figuring out these details of. So let's step through what the possibilities are could be. Let's tell you what the answer is if you're going to work through them. This is one where whenever you do this is absolutely what you should work through. It is, there we go, gigabit Ethernet over fiber. We know it's more than 100 meters long. Therefore, we can't really use copper for this particular configuration. So we want to be able to figure out what we can use from a fiber perspective. So make sure we go through this. There's 2 Ethernet fiber standards you need to know for the Network Plus exam. There used to be lots of standards you needed to know for the Network Plus exam. In this latest version, they've shrunk it down to about 4. They've made it very, very easy for you to figure this out. And in fact, these are the standards that you will run into if you start doing some network design. 1000 base SX, very common to find. You can think of the S as being a short distance, relatively speaking, as far as fiber is concerned. So you're talking about a standard that usually extends somewhere between 220 to 500 meters. The exact distance will depend on the hardware you're using, the type of light or laser that it's using. Depends on what you're doing. Although it is an S, we call it short. And we do that not because necessarily any of these standards mean anything, because they don't. They just chose these names to sort of make it at least pretend that they were thinking about how the standard will be used, because there's another one that is the 1000 base LX standard, very commonly uses laser and goes from about 550 meters to 5 kilometers. So whenever you start working through what do we do with this? How do we work through it? How do we figure these details out? There's two different standards you need to work through for fiber on Ethernet. One is the 1000 base SX, one is the 1000 base LX, and those are the two you need to know. S being the shorter distance, L being the longer distance. Is there a cost difference? There's absolutely a cost difference. There is going to be a much more of a cost difference between the two. If it goes a farther distance and it uses lasers, then it's going to be more expensive of a product in general, and it's going to certainly have a focus on extending this out over distances that other products cannot. So people can ask more money for that particular product. The longer the distance, the more money it's going to cost you. Can you imagine the cost of these that go under the ocean to another continent? You can imagine the amount of money they're spending on those, not to mention just having the fiber that's not in the ground, it's in the ocean. So there's another challenge of having those there. Hopefully that will be something that whenever we start working through the details, that is always going to be the thing we have to worry about, is that cost. So we know that this is 500 or 250 meters. So it's sort of in that sweet spot where we don't have to go farther than this 250 meters. So for that purpose, we know we can do we call it the short wave. We can do the shorter fiber standard, which is 1000 base SX. We don't have to use the LX. The LX is more expensive. We can use the SX, only 250 meters away. That's perfect. That's a perfect one when we're working through those. This is one where knowing these standards is going to help you, not just on the exam, because you have to know these things, but these are the standards that we're implementing whenever we're starting to do a configuration for a data center, a configuration between buildings in a campus. If you're working for a university, if you're working for a hospital, these are very large campus. Make sure you're familiar with those and have all of those pieces. This is extremely useful to know this as you're trying to build out a design. You're putting a map right in front of you and figuring out where are we going to put equipment. Let's put it in this building, and this building. Let's connect fiber between them. Now, what kind of hardware do we need? What kind of fiber is that? And what kind of hardware we're going to use to connect that fiber? That's where these standards will help you a lot. So make sure you're familiar with those, not just for your exam, but they're going to help your entire career of being able to do all of those things. There's a ton of content on the Network Plus exam, just an enormous amount. The Network Plus exam throws so many different abbreviations at you, all of these different standards, the different fiber connections, the different copper connections. You have to know protocols. You have to know routing technologies. You have to be able to do all of this for your single exam. It's not even split over multiple exams like the A+ is. You go in and you sit for one single exam, and you have to know all of these things. So this is where, whenever you start trying to figure out, how do I put all of this into my head? Obviously, as you're going through all of my videos, it helps if you take some notes. Some of you may not have time to take the notes. You may not have time to go through every video. You, of course, need a good book. You need good Q&A. You need to watch the videos. You need some hands-on. But these course notes may be a good way for it to collapse everything into one single view. I've got the course notes right here. On my screen, how big are these course notes? They go 66 pages for the Network Plus course notes, and they are big. Each video is documented. Everything about each video is documented in these course notes. You'll find all of the details about the course notes, and professormesser.com/NPCN7 will tell you more information about the course notes. And there's a PDF. You can download it right now. If you buy it right now, you download it, you put it on all your mobile devices, wherever you happen to be, you'll be able to reference these notes. Some of you have mentioned that you like a physical version, so there's a book version of the course notes as well. It's exactly the same content. There's nothing different about the physical version versus the digital version. It's simply a physical printed, there it is, it makes noise, so you know it's physical. This is something that is on a perfect bound printing. It's a nice heavy stock, beautiful colors. It's a nice high quality book. And if you get the physical version, then I give you the digital version for free. and I'll ship you this. So you can purchase the physical book, and it'll take however long it takes to get to you with United States Postal Service. Some folks in the chat room asking about international. There's no way to know how long it takes to send something international because it has to go through customs. So usually that extends it by 1 or 2 weeks. But if you can, of course, when you purchase it online, you have the option to get the physical version if you'd like to, and do that as well. So that might help you. That might be something you can use. And of course, internationally, maybe you buy the digital version. Maybe that's something you print out on your own. Maybe that's the way you do it. But you've got some options there at least. And you'll find all of that information and all those options on how to buy this Course Notes book, which of course helps support the site. This is how we're able to make these free videos, is thanks to your support. Find out more about it, ProfessorMesser.com/NPCN7, Network Plus Course Notes for the 7 version. So very good to have something there you can work with. And I think whenever I start working through, how do I find this? How do I do this? How do I collapse all this in my brain? Maybe the Course Notes would be the good way to do that for you. I think it would be. Let's do some more Q&A, though. I've got plenty of questions for you today. So here is the next one. I have to change it on my screen, too, which would help. The next question asks, a company's remote site suffers from daily power outages that last 2 seconds before normal power is restored. Which of the following would be the best power management for the servers at this location? So this would be one that deals very specifically with keeping the network up and running. The possible answers are A, auto switching power supplies, B, generator, C, UPS, D, dual power supplies, and E, surge protectors. Hopefully this is one that you're familiar with. No hints in the chat room, please. If you happen to know the answer, you can, of course, go to ProfessorMesser.com/QA, and you can answer this particular question. This might be one you're familiar with. Might be one that you've worked with before. The company's remote site. I've been in this situation before. Company's remote site suffers from daily power outages that last 2 seconds before normal power is restored. Which of the following would be the best power management for servers at this location? All of these topics, by the way, for those of you asking in the chat room, come directly from the Network Plus exam objectives. So if you're wondering, where am I getting this from? Where are these questions coming from? They come directly from what CompTIA tells you should know for this exam. So hopefully it's one that you're familiar with and able to get through all of the details of this. Whenever I start going through these questions, you'll notice there are some things that are similar between these exams. There's a little overlap between Network Plus and A Plus. There's a little bit of overlap between Security Plus and Network Plus, but not a lot. Not as much as you might think. You see one question, you think, oh, these are similar exams. I can just step right in. I won't have to study. That's not the case. I've unfortunately seen people do that. So don't make that mistake. Your company's remote site suffers from daily power outages. What would it happen to be? So hopefully you'll run into this scenario. Let's see what you think it happens to be. For 2 seconds, I agree with 86% of you that says UPS. That is exactly the best choice I think it should be. Whenever you start going into figuring out just a short-term power fix, how can I prevent a short-term power outage? UPS is the right answer. Now, there are, of course, extremely large UPS that are rooms full of batteries that can keep a site up for hours. But even that, in the big scheme of things, is short-term. Here in Florida, we recently had a hurricane come through. Power at Messer Studios was out for about 4 days. So that is a scenario where if you want to stay up and running, the batteries are not going to last 4 days. I can tell you, the batteries don't last 4 days. So make sure that whenever you run into these types of problems, you think longer term. If it's more than 2 hours, well, then you're in pretty good shape. Being able to work through that is certainly a better idea at going through all of trying to have all these batteries there. UPS is a great choice for 2 hours, but for 4 days, maybe a generator would be a better choice. Why wouldn't it be an auto switching power supply? An auto switching power supply is designed to switch between different voltages. So if you go from a 120 volt to a 220 volt in a different country, your power supply will automatically switch between them. You might need a different cable to actually plug into the power outlet because the end of the cable is a little different, but the power supply will be able to understand what you're plugging into automatically, which helps as well. Dual power supplies helps you if one of those power supplies in a server happens to fail, then you've got another power supply. But if power's out, it's going to be out on both power supplies. And surge protectors will only protect you from surges on an existing power service, and the service has to be there to have a surge. If the power is not there, well, then you don't have to worry about a surge. There's no surge coming in if there's no power. So that's not your correct answer either. So UPS, definitely the 86% of you got that one absolutely right. That is the one you want to focus on. And if it can either be a UPS that's in a rack, it could be a larger system. There's different types of UPSs that operate in different ways. You want to find the one that's right for your particular requirements. Make sure you're familiar with those and how they operate. Let's move away from power supplies and let's do a multiple choice question dealing with a different technology. This one is going to ask you specifically about this technology. Which of these technologies is most associated with TKIP? Which of these technologies is most associated with TKIP? Would it be WPA2, WEP, WAF, WPA, or WPS? One of those is going to be the technology most associated with TKIP. Is it WPA2, WEP, WAF, WPA, or WPS? 5 different similarly named technologies, all of them real, by the way. All of those are real things. See what I mean about the Network Plus exam throwing different acronyms at you? All of those acronyms are on the Network Plus exam. So maybe that's one of those you just have to work through it. And maybe you're familiar with TKIP and what it is. If you are, you would be able to answer this one pretty quick. TKIP would be an excellent way to make that happen. So if you're ever trying to figure out how do these things match up, there is a matchup for this particular kind of technology. Maybe it's one you've run into yourself. This could be something you might have run into yourself. This is one that's certainly more accessible than other things that you might find on an enterprise network. You could run into this on your home network. There's the only hint I'll give you. Which of these technologies is most associated with TKIP? Is it WPA2, WEP, WAF, WPA, or WPS? Well, we're not sure. Quite honestly, we're torn between 2 different options. 42% of you chose WPA2, 41% of you chose WPA, 12% of you chose WEP, 3% of you chose a WAF, and 2% of you chose WPF or WPS. I'm now making up things. So we know that we have 2 that are really tied for first, WPA and WPA2. They sound almost identical, but they really are not. They're really quite different. WPA was an intermediary protocol we used for wireless encryption when we found out that WEP, which is the wired equivalent privacy protocol that we started with on these wireless networks, turns out not really equivalent to a wired network at all and not private at all. It could be easily cracked. It had some significant cryptographic vulnerabilities, and so we stopped using WEP. We knew we would need something bigger and better. We knew we needed a much stronger method of encrypting traffic, but we had this problem where we had this older equipment that was made for WEP, and we need a stronger encryption, but our access points weren't built for stronger encryption. They did not have the ability to have much bigger key sizes and a very complex encryption method because the CPU in these access points would not be able to handle it. So we needed an intermediary that was stronger, certainly, than WEP. Perhaps it was just as good, but without the cryptographic vulnerabilities, and we came up with one. And that intermediary was WPA, the Wi-Fi Protected Access Protocol. WPA allowed us to run on the existing hardware, but provided a much more secure environment. WPA uses an encryption RC4 with TKIP. TKIP is the temporal key integrity protocol. The initialization vector, this temporal key that's in use, was the big problem with WEP. So with WPA, we made the initialization vector even larger. We had an encrypted hash that was inside of it. We couldn't guess that initialization vector any longer. That was the big problem we had with WEP. And every packet gets its own little special key because of that. However, that was an intermediary. We needed a much better way to do encryption on a wireless network. And the one that really replaced this, and the one you should be using everywhere, is WPA2. WPA2 uses AES, which is pretty much for all intents and purposes, a much more secure encryption mechanism. And it is one that everybody should be running on their systems. So hopefully, whenever you start looking at these and you see that WPA is there, you should instantly know, oh, that used RC4 and it used TKIP. So those should sync up with you. So if you're looking through a list on an access point and it says it can do WPA with TKIP, you know what that is. You're like, oh, that's the intermediate. I should only be using that if I have some really, really old equipment that couldn't possibly do WPA2, which these days, really hard to find. Most people's wireless technologies now are completely up to date with WPA2 because WPA2 has been out for quite a long time. So our answer here, which of these is most associated with TKIP? The answer is D, WPA. It is not generally associated with WPA2. TKIP also, by the way, has its own set of vulnerabilities. It has, I wouldn't say a very bad vulnerability associated with it. It's one that really deals with being outside the scope of another device, but sharing the same access point. But there were some challenges, some problems found with TKIP in itself. So that was certainly where you should focus on understanding the underlying protocols and why we use them and why we don't use them any longer in the case of WPA. So yes, it is all intense. It's not intense and purposes. It's intentions, so to speak. For the same reason, it's champing at the bit and not chomping at the bit. Take that one back with you. As someone who, former horse owner, that one will stick with you for a while. There is certainly a lot you need to know about these exams. Make sure you're familiar with them. All of these protocols, by the way, on the exam objectives, all the answers for this are on the exam objectives. Make sure you know that. Yeah, maybe it's in a tent for all in a tent and purpose. Maybe that's what it is. There is, if you already have your Network Plus certification, or if you already have your A Plus certification, or if you already have any certification that needs continuing education unit credit, I'll give you an hour of a webinar-based credit right now. All you have to do is go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a Contact Us link. You have to follow these instructions or you're not going to get the CEU, by the way. You can't just send me an email out of the blue. You have to go to the top or bottom of my website and follow that link that says Contact Us. It's going to ask you for your name. It's going to ask you for your email. Make sure you put those in. Make sure they're correct or I won't be able to get it back to you. See how that works? And then there's just a blank there where you can put any message to me. I'm the one reading through these. So if you want to put a message to me, you can. You can do that at any time, really. It doesn't have to be now, but you can. But somewhere in there, put the word or the acronym TKIP. Just put it in there. If you don't even want to write a message, just put the word TKIP. I'll know exactly what you're talking about. And it does help also if you say this is the November 2018 Network Plus study group. Helps me find some things on my side because I get quite a number of these that come through. I have sort of an automated macro thing on my machine that I sit there and I go through them, but it builds the email back to you and I make sure everything's correct. So I'm sitting there watching the machine operate and make sure everything's there. You can absolutely send me multiple CEU requests in a single email. It takes me a little bit longer to get that back because I have to build that one manually, but absolutely you can do that, especially some people will send me 10 of these because CompTIA will, for the Security Plus exam, they'll take 10 of these at a time. If you're renewing a Network Plus, they take fewer of these in a 3-year period. But you can absolutely put them in a big chunk, and I just send you one email back that says, here's 10 CEUs, knock yourself out. What you do with these CEUs is up to you. CompTIA has a particular process they have, but a lot of people use these CEUs for other things as well. I just give you the email. Technically, I think most people would allow you to simply say, yes, I watched this, and you'd be fine. But I like to give you a little proof. I like to give you an email back so that you know, yeah, you were here. You did this. So follow those instructions, and I'll be glad to send that to you. More than happy. It takes me about a week or more, depending on what's going on in my world. So that's what you need to just keep in mind. So if I've had people send it an hour later, ask, where is it? Where's the CEU? It's not an automated process. It's me sitting down in a chair and doing this. So that's what that's all about. So, but don't be concerned. It just takes me a while. I'm an old guy. It just takes me a while to get that. I got to sit down. I got to think about it. I get a big chunk of them and I just burn through them, but they will get to you. So there you go. Some of you in the chat, we'll talk about CEUs in the after show. So stick around. If you're wondering about this whole CEU thing, should I be collecting a CEU? Should I not be collecting a CEU? How should I renew my certifications? I'll be glad to answer that in the after show. That'd be a good thing to talk about in the after show. Right now, let's do another question. Talk about this question, which asks, a network administrator is concerned that a device at a remote site may be running a web server. Apparently should not be running a web server. Which of these would allow the administrator to remotely view any open ports on this device? Would it be netstat, traceroute, nmap, dig, or ARP? So a network administrator is concerned that a device at a remote site may be running a web server, and we need to find them, hunt them down. Which of these would allow the administrator to remotely view any open ports on this device? Would it be netstat, traceroute, nmap, dig, or ARP? All of those things are real. All of them are from the CompTIA exam objectives, and you should know what each one of those things does. And if you do, that should be an easy one for you. If you don't, then we'll get to learn something. That's my goal. My goal is not to give you questions that every single one of these questions you'll know. My goal is so that maybe half of you get these things right. When it goes over 50%, I get angry. Like, oh, I didn't fool enough people. I'm not trying to fool you, but if we all got 100% right, this would be the most boring study group ever. Maybe it still is. There's still an opportunity for this to be a boring study group. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to be because of this question. So there you go. We've certainly got that. What's the Linux equivalent of netstat? Anyone? Anyone? What is the Linux equivalent of netstat? There's a little bonus question in the chat room for you. The Linux equivalent of netstat. That's correct. It's netstat. That's an easy one to remember for you Linux people. See, there's a Linux people there. Linux people are in there somewhere. That's an easy one. In fact, interestingly enough, netstat on Windows, just as hard to use on Linux. So not only do we keep the same name, in fact, maybe on Linux, even more difficult to use. Have you seen some of these netstat lines of commands people do with the greps and the awks? Just ridiculous. So that's where you do run into a problem. Why isn't Ubuntu considered Linux? Ubuntu is Linux. I consider that Linux. Why would that not be Linux? All the questions we go through during this study group always helps me as well. There's plenty to go through. Let's see how we did. I'm going to take a sneak peek, by the way, before you see it. Let's see how we did with this one. I wonder who's saying that Ubuntu is not Linux. That's what I want to know. I think somebody's just trying to be in a fight. Let's do a geek fight over Ubuntu not being Linux. And let's all just slap each other over that nerd battle. That's exactly what it is. Let's not even get into the nerd battle. Let's instead see how we did with this question, which was about the network administrator concerned the device at a remote site may be running a web server. Which of these would allow the administrator to remotely view any open ports on this device? We're kind of torn. Inside, I'm so happy, just so you're aware. But I'm going to say we're a little torn on this one. 45% of us said nmap, 36% of us said netstat, 13% of us said traceroute, and single digits for dig and ARP. Dig and ARP. So nobody thought it was dig. Nobody thought it was ARP. A few of you thought it was traceroute, but we're kind of torn between netstat and nmap. Maybe we talked about netstat too much during the the chat prior to answering the question. I wasn't watching in real time to see if it suddenly bumped up, but we were talking so much about netstat, we might have thrown some people off. Finding an open port on a device is a very, very useful skill for network administrators and for security administrators, for system administrators too, quite honestly. And if you are someone who really, really wants to become very proficient at finding open ports on a device, regardless of what's between you and that other device, the technology you really need to become familiar with is Nmap. It is a remarkable utility. It is probably one of the least understood and most powerful utilities you will ever use on a network. And I say this as someone, I wrote a book on Nmap back in the day. This was early on in the years of Messer Studio. So it's like 10 years ago. So it's no longer, I didn't maintain it, so it's not up to date with the latest Nmap, so I just don't sell it any longer. But what a powerful program and the things you can do with Nmap. And it works in so many different systems. The most common thought of what Nmap does for most people is that it does port scanning. So it can scan a device and see if a port is open. So it might scan that server at that other location, that device, and see that port 80 is open. But what Nmap can also do is perform an operating system scan, not by logging into the device, by simply sending some specially crafted packets into that device and seeing what kind of response they get back. And by simply doing that, Nmap can make a determination of the operating system and the version of the operating system that's running on that device. So already you might have been able to tell it's port 80 and it's on Windows Server 2012 R2. You can tell that with Nmap. Even further, you can send specially crafted packets to that device and perform a service scan. So the service scan will look at port 80 and tell you what's running on port 80, because anything could be running on port 80. It may not be a web server. It might be doing FTP. Maybe somebody's trying to sneak around a firewall and putting FTP on port 80. Is that the case? Nmap will tell you. Nmap will tell you that it's a web server. It will tell you that it's Nginx. It will tell you that it's Apache web server. It'll tell you that it's IIS, and it will tell you the version of that service. See how crazy that is? Nmap's a great utility. Find it at nmap.org. Also has scripting available in it, so people have extended the functionality of Nmap by writing their own scripts. It's amazing what they're able to do with this. Fantastic tool. Fantastic. And if you become very, very proficient at Nmap, you suddenly realize I could be using this for a lot of things. I could be really taking advantage of this technology for a lot of things. Nmap can break stuff though. Do not scan anybody's network with Nmap unless you have permission. There you go. So pretty important for those. So definitely be familiar with this answer. What would allow the administrator to remotely view any open ports on this device? Nmap is the right answer. Netstat will tell you the open ports available on the machine you're on right now. It doesn't tell you what's open on another machine. So there's your really challenge. Nmap is, and people keep asking, is this on the test? This is on the test. You can find after every one of these questions. This is from the Intent 007, section 5.2 of the exam objectives from my video called Command Line Tools. Tells you exactly where on the exam objectives you will find Nmap. It is indeed there. Who knew? That's exactly where I get that from. People were wondering, where in the world does that come from? Did he make it up? Is it something no, that's a real thing. And it's right there. That's why I put that in. If you go back, you'll watch the replay. Look at the bottom of that slide that I do after every question. I stick that on there so that you'll know when you're looking at this, like, I don't remember, where is that? Oh, it's section 3.1. It's section 5.2. It's section whatever it happens to be. So that would be useful for anyone who's stepping through all these pieces. So if you did answer Nmap, answer C, that is the correct answer, would not be Netstat. That tells you what ports are open on your machine, not on a remote device. Would not be Traceroute, which would tell you the routers in between you and the other device, but it doesn't tell you what ports are open between you and the other device, which is what we're really trying to find out for this question. And Dig is a front end to your DNS server. You can query DNS servers with Dig. Querying a DNS server won't tell you anything about open ports. And the address resolution protocol, very useful for being able to see what MAC addresses are associated with IP addresses on my local cache, means nothing about finding an open port for a web server. So that is why in this question in MAP, answer C is the correct answer. 43% of you are spot on. Well done with that. Can you believe we went through an hour of Q&A already? Stick around. We've got more questions in the chat room calling in. I'll open up the phone lines. You can call me directly, talk, ask whatever you'd like on there. Stick around for that. But I've got another one of these on December the 12th. Come back for the next Network Plus Study Group. We do one of these about every week. So next week is our Security Plus Study Group. But then if you want to come back for the next Network Plus Study Group, December 12th. And of course, you can go back and look at the entire archive on the Professor Messer website. All of the Network Plus Study Groups are archived there. And of course, you can go to professormesser.com/podcast. And of course, all of the study groups are there for the last couple of years, I think. We've got a few there the last couple of years of that. And if this is after December the 12th of 2018, you can always find the next live event is always posted. professormesser.com/calendar, and you'll find it exactly where it is. Well, I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for following us on Twitter, professormesser.com/Twitter. Thank you for subscribing at professormesser.com/YouTube. Thank you for your ongoing support with the purchase of the course notes at professormesser.com/NPCN, Network Plus Course Notes. They keep the lights on. They keep all of this happening. So thank you for that. Your contributions are much appreciated. There is also another study group next week. Come back for the Security Plus study group in just 7 days. I'll be back here. Who knows what's going to happen the next 7 days, but I'll be here same time, same place next week, hopefully, and you'll be able to watch the Security Plus study group. Stick around the next hour. We'll open up the phone lines. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your answers. Thank you for your questions. Thank you for everything. If I don't talk to you before December in the United States, have a great Thanksgiving. We will see you next time on the Network Plus study group. Let's open up the phone lines. And how does that work? How does any of this work? Sometimes I wonder if I'm going to remember what buttons to push to make it work. I think we've got this one. We're going to start the show. I'm going to log into the show myself, but you can call the show. I'll show you how to call the show in just a moment. But first, I have to push buttons on my side. There's nobody here but me. So I'm the one who gets to do this. Let's make a phone call. Skype, thank you so much for changing everything around so I can't find it. I can't thank you enough as someone who's trying to do this in real time. It really makes a difference whenever I'm trying to put a show together.
Enter your 6-digit PIN number.
That's redundant. The 6-digit PIN number is this number, the 6-digit personal identification number, and it says,
you are now in the host room.
See, I'm in the host room, which means you can be in the caller room. And the way you do that is you call that number. You 855-785-RJ45 will get you to our phone line. I'm also taking questions from the chat room. So if you'd like, I don't want to call and talk to people with the phone and my voice. Maybe you've never had a phone call. Maybe you've never picked up a smartphone and thought, how do I make a phone call? You may not know, but you can go to the chat room. This is my kids. Like, I'm not going to call you. Can I just text you? You can put it in the chat room. So that would be good. You're more than welcome to do that. If you are on Skype, you can call me for free. No Skype minutes required anywhere in the world. You put a +1 at the beginning, +1 855-785-7545, and you can do that as well. So a number of you, the phone line's already full. Well, almost full. The phone line's already filling up. So we're definitely going to go there. Let me quickly talk to you about renewing your certification. This does come up from time to time. There are a number of different ways to renew your certification. I highly recommend you go to the CompTIA website. There's an entire section for renewals. And CompTIA has given you so many different ways to renew that you may not exactly know the best way to go about doing this. But you could renew by collecting CEUs. You can renew by taking another higher level CompTIA exam. You can renew by taking a third-party exam. You can renew, most recently, they have a new way that you can renew by taking an online course that lasts 3 to 6 hours. So this is one called their CertMaster CE. So in fact, you don't even have to pay your annual CEU fees. Just buy this course, go through it in 3 to 6 hours, and you're done. So if you're somebody you've waited until the last minute, you're on the last possible day before your certification expires, you can buy the CertMaster CE, take it, and you're done for 3 years. So that's why I say that some of you don't need a CEU from me. Some of you just take the CertMaster. I would take the CertMaster CE. I'm that person. Like, I don't want to collect CEUs and do all of. Let me just buy the CertMaster CE, which when you look at the cost of CertMaster CE versus buying the annual CEU maintenance fees, it's a little bit more, but not much. So that's why. How exactly does it work? I really don't know exactly how it works because I haven't taken it, but other people have, and they've told me that it's kind of like an online training where they ask questions after the chapters, and you have to get every question right to continue. But if you don't get it right, and just take it again, and you go to the next chapter. So they say 3 to 6 hours. It might take you less, depending on how fast you go through that. So that is all on the CompTIA website. Make sure you check those things out. Let's go to the phone lines, and let's start with the 919 area code. Hello, caller. Thank you for calling. What's your name, and where are you calling from?
I'm Stephen Freed.
Hey, Stephen. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
How you doing? I'm just wanted to listen in and just hear what's going on. It's very exciting, and thank you for helping with the certification.
Why, thank you for calling. Are you in the midst of working through your Network Plus certification?
Yes, I am.
What type of study materials are you currently using towards this end?
I am using the uCertify.
Okay. So you've got like a whole program set up online. You go in there. You've got effectively book materials, some video content. Are you getting much hands-on?
Yes, well, in the uCertify, there's a lot of labs that are in there.
Perfect.
I'm using your materials too. I love your materials, by the way. You are very, very able to explain things very well.
I appreciate that. It's okay if you're not, but I appreciate that you are. Thank you so much.
But yeah, I'm using your materials too, and I like to go to various resources. I find that if there's any topic or concept that I can find, either with you, either going through the web, or going through some other source to explain it in depth, so that I could get it. And I find by doing that, it really helps to explain the concept and makes it more concrete in my mind.
I think that's your best strategy too. Sometimes I misspeak. Sometimes in a video, I will say a thing that is either not correct or a little bit off the mark. I usually will put out a new video when that happens. Sometimes when I'm blindingly sitting in front of the camera and blah, 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 I'll say the wrong word and it'll somehow get onto the video. Sometimes there's a direct conflict between my videos, a factual piece of information and a factual piece of information on someone else's. And I think going to a third-party source to figure out which one of us is right, I'm right, then I think that's really the best way you go about doing those types of things. Sometimes I am wrong, and you guys are great on calling me out. One of the nice things about having this on YouTube is I can make a new video that actually corrects things, put it out there, and then everybody knows where the correction is. That sometimes helps as well. Well, thank you so much, Stephen. I appreciate the call.
I have one question.
Oh, sure.
If I may.
Absolutely.
It's related to Network Plus, but I'm trying to discover the correct answer.
All right.
On a switch, the reason for using a switch is you no longer have the collision domain. You have it on each port, correct?
One of the challenges, when we moved from hubs to switches, part of the benefit of a switch is you could communicate to the switch over a full duplex connection, so that you had one channel was sending and the other channel was receiving, and there was no possible way that both of those sides could collide with each other. So most people,
Right.
when they move from hubs to switches, that was the real benefit. Yes, no more collision domain, thankfully.
Right. Now, what happens when you have a VLAN? Does that change that at all?
It doesn't. Now, all it really does is change how many switches you have to keep in your rack. I mean, if you had 5 different IP subnets, you could put 5 separate switches in your rack, and then that effectively would keep all of those subnets separate. But that sure wastes a lot of rack space. You have to spend money on 5 switches, and there's probably going to be interfaces on each one of those switches you're not using. So that's wasted money and a wasted interface. So what VLAN effectively does is squish those into a single unit and allows you logically to split them up as if they were 5 switches, but they're really inside the same chassis that's inside of your rack. So that makes things a little less expensive. There's one device you have to manage, and now you still have the separation. So you have a little bit more security and organization as well.
It does not change the collision domain.
Not a bit.
Point, right?
It's effectively exactly the same as having 5 separate switches.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling, and thanks for all your studies you're doing. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Whenever I start getting into trying to break out VLANs, one of the things I did in the latest Network Plus videos is I just drew a picture. I think it helps if you see they're separate, and then suddenly they start squishing together, and I color code them so you can see where all of these things go and where all of these things fit. I think that is a very good way for someone you haven't been there, and you weren't there in the hub days where all we had was hubs. You weren't there when we put switches in, and we were thinking, how does this work? What? I can have what's a VLAN? What is that like? That was a brand new idea, and amazing in its operation, and it changed the way we do networking. So very useful. Let's go to the 334 area code. Hello, caller. Are you there? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, my name is Clint. I'm from Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome. What question you have for us?
Well, I guess I don't really have a question. I literally just took my Network Plus exam yesterday, and I passed.
All right.
With a 729.
Hey, that's a pass. By the way, is a pass. They don't put your score on your certification. You absolutely are good to go with that. There was one certification exam I took one time where I literally passed by a point. I was fine with that.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Congratulations.
One of the guys I was talking to after, he said, it makes no difference if you made a 900 or a 720.
That's right.
You get it.
I like to say that you studied. You studied just the right amount. You didn't study too much.
Yeah.
You didn't study too little. It was really the perfect amount.
Yeah, well, the night before I was talking to my wife, and I was just like, my brain is so fried with all of this information and everything that's into it. And I just want to thank you for all your stuff that you put out. The course notes were great. I was able to just, I went through all the 12 hours of your videos that you did on NTO7, and it really helped out. And then watching even these study guide reviews that you're doing right now, like those questions really help you think how and why is this the best answer over this answer. And it really helped me. I'm the type of person that I have to reference something in my head for it to make sense. And then once I go to a question, it's like, oh, I remember your video on this specific thing, and it really helped out. And I just wanted to thank you, and it's very relieving to be done with Network Plus for now and move on to I'll be working on my Microsoft Windows Server certification.
That's fantastic. Well, I'm glad that worked out. It sounds like you got everything ordered. What's the next step then? Now that you've got this under your belt, have you even thought of what the next thing is going to be?
Yeah, I'm going to work on my MCSA for Windows Server.
Nice.
My work is reimbursing me for past exams, so I don't have to pay $300 for the Network Plus again. So
nice.
It's awesome.
Fantastic.
And,
That's a nice grouping as well. You've got the networking piece. You can blend in the operating system piece. I think all of those really do build on each other.
Right, I do too. I think it's good logical steps that my boss talked about and what I talked to him about.
Those will be things you learn that you'll be able to take with you your entire career, because Microsoft Windows back in the NT 4.0 days has not really, under the surface, not really changed a dramatic amount. We still have Active Directory. We still have the same type of protocols. We still have SMB. Those types of things you learn today, you'll be able to keep with you your entire career. So congratulations with that. And congratulations on that Network Plus. That's a fantastic thing.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I appreciate all you do.
Thanks for calling. Best of luck. That's whenever you start trying to figure out, where am I going to go with this? What's my next step? He already knew. He already knew where he was going with that. I really recommend that if you're taking certification exams, that you really have a path. The goal is not to take an exam and pass it. The goal is, what do you do with that once you have it? That's what you should be shooting for. So just having the certification doesn't help very much. Knowing what you're going to be doing with the certification does. And yes, in the chat room, folks wondering, where's my Network Plus training course? On the website, ProfessorMester.com. It's been there for quite some time. Network Plus N10007 has been there and available for a while. So you've got every minute of every video available for you to watch and enjoy. Let's go to the 503 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor. My name's JP. I'm from Portland, Oregon.
Well, welcome, JP. What can we do for you?
I have been in IT for 17 years. I started at an ISP back in the dial-up days, and I programmed things with hyperterminal.
Hell, I miss my the browser. What was it? The ICSA browser we would use back in that day, and connect up with my Trumpet WinSock. Yeah, I miss those days.
Yeah. Dude, I used to help people do that over the phone, so that I'm from that era.
Good for you. And you're still here. Congratulations.
Thank you. I am still with y'all, yeah. So I then became a tech trainer. I got an anthropology degree. I decided not to go with a computer science degree. Yeah, and now I'm a mobile app developer. And I'm teaching some security classes at a nonprofit here in Portland.
Good. That's great.
And it got me just super interested back in my network history, and now I realize I actually have all these fundamentals. And so I went through both your course and Mike Myers. I went through his first. I found yours to be much more in-depth and technical. So my big question is, well, first of all, what's the difference between the 06 and the 07? Because I think I was taking his 06 training. And then the second thing I have to say is, man, the soft skills that they talk about on this exam are way underappreciated. Things like change management, those kinds of like non-technical things. I was never taught that, and it's like I wish I had been doing it for the last 17 years.
They're so fundamental in their operation. You know, people from the A+ exams talk a little bit about communication and professionalism, and that's absolutely important, and it's been on the exam forever. And then when you get to Network Plus and Security Plus, you are getting into these very interesting topics of change control, which can make or break an organization, by the way. People do not appreciate change control and what that really means and the scope. And I give a little bit of perspective on that in the videos. There's no way I could go into detail completely about that. But there's just one example of the things that not only will help you professionally, it doesn't seem like that's a technical thing. It turns out that's a very technical thing. So that's where I think people think the exams go off scope. I don't think they do at all. Change control is a huge part of what a lot of people do in our industry. Everybody talks about, well, I got to go to the Friday change control meeting or the Thursday change control meeting. We got to go do that. So it's just a normal part of life. As far as the differences,
just for a reason.
Exactly. As far as the differences between the 006 and 007, I do have a little project underway. I've got to get this started. That will take the exam objectives for 007 and will online allow you to compare those with the exam objectives of 006, which is what I do when I make my videos. The first thing I do is look to see what's new in this exam and what's not new in this exam. And so I've already gone through all of the exam objectives. I've got, if you're looking at the screen, I've got, for instance, the 007 1.0 section up right now. Everything that's green is something that was in the older version, the 006 version. Everything that's yellow is new in this exam. So you see a lot of green. You don't see a lot of yellow, but there is some. And that's sort of this exam in general. About 30% of this exam is new content. This was not a huge change from the 006 version, fortunately, but there was just enough change that if you were studying from 006 materials, you would have been at a significant disadvantage if you walked into the exam room. So I always tell people, if you're taking the 007 exam, make sure all of your study materials say 007 on them, or they're not going to be accurate to what you're going to see when you walk in the door. My plan is to take this content and make it available online. I have a plan to do that in a way that will make this very simple for everybody. We've just not done it yet. So this is one where I think after this weekend, I will have the thing I want to have online to make this easy for someone else to do this for me. So this is where my director of marketing, I think, who is listening, of course, to this, will be doing this task. But I've got to figure out the best way to make that happen. But I want to do that for the Network Plus, for Security Plus, for the upcoming A Plus. I think that'd be a useful thing to know for people that go back to those previous versions.
Right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going through Security Plus after I pass this thing. I'm sure I'm going to pass it. I'll see you in your next study group there.
That's perfect. Thanks, JP. Best of luck.
Yeah. Thank you.
This is, by the way, for those of you that are watching, there is stuff in purple. Not a lot. There's a few things in purple. Those are things that were in the old version, but they were different enough that I knew I would need to update them based on the context of what was being asked. So for example, bridging and wireless converters are in purple for section 2.2. And I knew that the bridging section and the wireless and the converter section I had in the 006 did not fit this exact scope of what they changed this to be. So I said, well, let's do tweaks. A lot of this I can copy and paste. It's exactly the same. Switches haven't changed between the 006 and the 007. So the switching section is exactly the same. Sometimes I will add other things. Even if it's green in here, I go through each one of those slides. I update, I change some text, maybe change a graphic, maybe get a better picture. So things have changed, but I didn't have to restructure the entire course. The longest part about making these courses is building them out. I build out the entire course before I shoot any video. So that takes months to build the course. And then once it's built, I can create course notes, I can shoot video. That's a relatively rote process. That's the easy part, quite honestly, but it's the building out of the entire course that takes some time. Back to the phones. Back to 720 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Felix, and I'm calling from Denver, Colorado.
Oh, welcome, Felix. What can we do for you?
So I work for a company where we have to, well, it's beneficial to have the A plus, the NEC plus, and the SEC plus, and a lot of us are using your study material, and it's been very helpful.
Great.
So I wanted to give you kudos for that.
Nice. How you say all three of those things. So you're in the process of doing at least one of those right now, and probably most people are.
Yes. So I've had my A plus for a while, and I'm currently reading material on the Network Plus. I am currently studying using a book that Mike Myers has, and at the same time I'm watching your videos, and I printed out the CompTIA Network certification objectives.
Nice. Well done.
And then we have study groups here. I guess everybody has their own ways of studying and absorbing. Some people study better using videos, and other people are better at reading and then just going in and taking the test.
Yep.
But it's really, for this, there's a lot more on the line with the Network Plus in comparison to the A Plus. So
I agree.
One of the questions I wanted to ask you about was when it comes to subnetting, do you have like a like a recommended approach on trying to memorize that, and also with WAN. Like, WAN is so involved too.
I do have, I wouldn't say a recommended approach. Subnetting is one of those things that is sort of like you said, well, some people like to read a book, people like to watch a video. Subnetting is almost the same thing. There is situations where people have different styles they like to use to do the subnetting piece. Some people like to do it as a pie chart. If you Google subnetting pie chart, there's a whole process for subnetting that uses pie charts. If you Google subnetting magic number, there's a whole process for people for subnetting with the magic number. In my videos, I show you how to subnet by converting to binary, and I show you the underlying math associated with that, which really applies to everything associated with subnetting. I'm showing you the actual subnetting at the binary level and how we do it. How people use that and how they find shortcuts is really the secret. It's almost a very personal thing. In my video, of course, you notice I do my 7-second subnetting because that's what I use on an exam, because I'm incapable of thinking during an exam. Everything blacks out. I just see red colors. There's just a high-pitched noise in my ear. I'm not good on exams. It's a lot of anxiety for me. I'm nervous when I walk in, and I needed a subnetting method that effectively was as simple as either adding one and subtracting one. Otherwise, there was no math involved. And also it needed to be fast, because a lot of the exams I started taking in the industry were the higher level exams. They were the Cisco exams. They were the higher level security exams, where the subnetting piece, they expected you to be able to subnet immediately. The subnetting wasn't even part of the answer. The subnetting was what you had to do to get to another part of the question where you could finally answer the question. So that's why I created the 7-second subnetting. Now, people send me notes all the time. I say this in my 7-second subnetting video. This may not be the way for you. You might want to look at pie charts. You might want to look at magic number. You might find an easier way. And I get that. And you should find the way that works for you. I just showed you the way that works for me, which involved me drawing out a lot of charts prior to the exam starting. A lot of people don't like that. And I get that. I'm absolutely fine with that. So make sure you look at a lot of different ways to do it. And what you're going to find, this happened in our chat room this week, by the way, what you're going to find is suddenly something's going to click and you're going to realize, oh, that's how it works.
Right.
Now, okay. Now, and then all of those formats, all of the magic number and the pie charts and and you realize it's all doing the same thing, just in a different way. It's not like there's a different answer. It's just math, and math is you add one and you add one. It always comes out to be 2 every single time. So find the one that works for you, and it may not be the one I have. It may not be the pie. It may not be magic number. It may be something different. You may be able to
and all of this will work
all
towards the test. Like when you're taking the exam, it doesn't matter your method as long as you get the answer. They allow you to write down. Okay. And speaking of test questions, the practice exams that you have available, they help you prepare for the actual exam. And I was just kind of curious how you come up with the questions, to prepare you for the exam. I mean, are they memorized questions from when someone took them? I mean, how does a practice exam come to be that makes you confident and ready, when you're getting high scores on the practice exam so that you can go in there and actually take the test?
Yeah, it's a little bit of a challenge from your perspective. For someone who is a test taker, it's really hard to find and know that you have found a high quality group of questions. This is perhaps one of the biggest problems that people have, because I tell people you need to get a good book, you need to watch videos, you need to do some hands-on, and you need to do as much Q&A as possible. Some of the Q&A on the internet is just horrible. I've gone through some of them and wondered why, or no, do not do this. Stay away from this site. Others I found, these are good questions, but I've really realized there's not a lot of that out there. And that's why with my A+, I created an entire set of practice questions just for A+. I will be creating a set of sample exams for Security Plus and a set of sample exams for Network Plus, because it's so hard to find exams that are structured in the same way the exam actually is, and that are the same difficulty as what you would find on the exam. I think there's a gap there, and unfortunately it's hard to know unless you get some feedback. One of the best places I think people get feedback is on Reddit. Reddit has a very popular CompTIA subreddit. Go to reddit.com/r/CompTIA. Plenty of people posting in there all the time about how they are they passed their exams. Here were the things they used, and here are the things they liked a lot. Here's the test question set that they found to be the best help for them. And in fact, some people say, here's the test question set I found to be horrible. And then you could start checking that off on your list. It's sort of a cheap man's Consumer Reports for test questions. I think that may be the best way to go about doing it.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time. I'll continue to study and watch videos, and I appreciate the heads up regarding the test questions, because there are a lot of practice exams out there, and that's been a concern of mine, and I avoid certain sites. I'm not going to bring them up, but it's just something that it's a concern, because I don't want to learn something that's not correct.
And I will tell you that some of these sites out here, they're brain dump sites. They have gotten their hands on actual test questions. And I've gone to these sites and I'm like, okay, that's directly from the test, but they put the wrong answers down. And I don't know if they do this on purpose or not. I'm wondering if the fix is in. I'm wondering if somebody's trying to trick us. So be very careful about that as well. You're absolutely right to try to find a good set of reputable test questions. It's going to be really important for your studies. Well,
you got your work cut out for you for your next practice exam.
You're absolutely correct, sir. Thanks, Felix.
Bye-bye.
It is a challenge. It's hard to find good stuff. My pop quiz questions on the website are one thing. It's hard to find good. There's no such thing as good free practice questions, I have found. I want to say that the ones that I put on my site are archives of my study groups. But those aren't designed to be the same questions that you would get on an exam or similar style to the exam. I write questions for my study groups to help you understand the topics. That's a different purpose than the type of questions you would get on an actual exam. So I want to create an entire set of test questions that are very similar to the feel, the style of an actual exam. So I'm working on that. I got a big list. There's a lot of things I'm working on. That's one of them. Back to the phones, the 202 area code. Thank you for holding for so long, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Professor Messer. Thank you so much for taking my call. My name is Simon. I'm calling from Maryland.
Welcome. What can we do for you, Simon?
I'm a dental assistant, and I'm currently looking to change fields, and the IT field has been very appealing to me, and I'm currently studying for my Network Plus. I've been studying for the last about 2-3 months, and I've watched your course, and I've watched Mike Myers' course. Everything on the course on the exam seems to be pretty technical stuff that can be committed to memory, but I'm just having issues understanding ports and visualizing how they work and understanding how they work. Like if I connect to a website, am I using DNS right away? If I'm using TeamViewer, is that a form of SSH? Because I'm using an encrypted way to connect to another PC remotely. I don't understand ports. I can understand, I can remember the numbers and stuff like that, and the acronyms, but I'm having trouble visualizing how they work.
That particular thing you're talking about is probably the biggest hurdle on the CompTIA exams in general, but especially the Network Plus. When people hit Network Plus, you are inundated with new terms and ideas that you never even knew existed up to that point. Idea of these Ethernet standards and ports and protocols and frames and packets. It is just a tidal wave of technical minutia. And now you're expected to kind of piece these things together. And we tell you port 80 is HTTP. what does that mean? How does that fit into the world? How does that, is that a thing? What do I do with that?
It's all happening in real time behind the scenes.
Is it real? We don't even know. The thing that helped me whenever I was first getting into networking, because I started as desktop, I really started as hardware break fix. I moved into desktop support. I learned Microsoft Windows. I became very familiar with the Windows operating system and how it operates and using it. And then I moved into networking. And you're right, you're jumping off a cliff into this black abyss, and you're trying to figure out what in the world is going on here. The thing that helped me the most was capturing the packets and looking at them. I was fortunate enough to be working for a company that had bought a sniffer. This was the company Network General that actually made a product called the Sniffer. That's where the name comes from. These days, Wireshark is free. My recommendation to you and anybody who's taking Network Plus is to grab Wireshark, learn the basics of it. All you really have to know with Wireshark is how to start a capture, how to stop a capture, and then how to filter out an IP address from that capture. Those are 3 things. That's all you need to know to start with. If you can do that, you can start a capture, you can connect to ProfessorMesser.com, you can do a team viewer, you can stop the capture and then look at the packets that are going back and forth. And you'll start to see, wait, there's the destination IP address. There's the source IP address. Here's a destination port number. There's the source port number. Wait, I recognize the destination port number as the one for TeamViewer, or the one for SSL, or the one for FTP, or the one for NTP, whatever it is. You'll start to see those numbers pop up and you realize, oh, that's how it's doing it. Back and forth, and you can actually track. Wireshark's great. It will build you a little map where you can see the packets go back and forth. That may be the way that you start to bring the real world into this conceptual world that we tell you about, and you actually see these technologies working under the surface. You're not going to understand everything about what you're looking at. There's way too much content, way too many things there. People who are well into their careers are still trying to figure out Wireshark, me included. There's parts of it, you can never know everything about networking, but you will begin to start to see patterns. You will begin to start to see things you recognize. You will start to see the OSI layers layered on top of each other in Wireshark. Right. Those concepts suddenly start solidifying everything for you. So if you haven't downloaded Wireshark, it's free. Do some captures. Know that you're going to be completely overwhelmed and none of this will make sense. Stick with it. Watch some YouTube videos on this stuff. Grab Laura Chappell's book. You're gonna do fine. That's one of the best things that can not only help you through this exam. That's a skill that unfortunately not a lot of people have, but it's a skill that can solve any problem on the network. Is being able to interpret and understand those packet captures. It's like a doctor being able to read a 12-lead EKG, where they look at it and go, wow, you got a problem, and it's right there. It's the same thing, except you're looking through this, what it at first seems like a view of the matrix, but eventually it all starts to come together for you.
Thank you so much. I just had one more quick career question for you, if you got the time.
Yeah.
So after I hopefully pass my Network Plus, I'm looking at my CCNA, and I've kind of been eyeing Security Plus. I'm just wondering if you can provide, like I said, I'm a dental assistant 2 months into this. I don't have very much technical career insight, and I don't really know which second certification would open up more doors for me. I know CCNA is a very solid one to get, but I also know that security is highly competitive, and people are just looking for that as well. So which one do you think is, I guess, better?
For
very
someone
broad question, I apologize.
No, actually it's pretty spot on with what I see a lot of people asking for in my chat room all the time. And if you aren't in the industry, you don't know. When you're trying to get started in IT, there's only so many available slots that you could really move into. What most people think about is the help desk, whether it's help desk where it's actually somebody on a phone in a room full of hundreds of people, or you're working for a corporation or a company as your internal help desk, which is not quite as ridiculous as the media or in movies make it seem. It's you showing up and getting a ticket and walking over to someone's desk and actually being human beings with them. That is usually your first foray into IT, is the help desk position. And we talk about that as being a very common way in. What you don't want to do is overload yourself with certifications that would never be considered for that first job. Getting a CCNA routing and switching is certainly something I recommend a lot of people move into. If they're moving into security, they're moving into networking, absolutely that should be a direction for you. But if you go to all of the online job posting sites and you look for those entry-level positions for the companies that are in your geographical area, I suspect none of them are going to be asking for the Cisco CCNA routing and switching. They don't. They look for that for their intro networking administrators, which are usually somebody who's been in the industry for a year or so that's moving into the networking side of things. And for security, there are no entry-level security positions. I say there are no. There's probably one company out there that's hiring entry-level for security. It's not an entry-level security position. Usually security is people that have been in networking for a while that have a very solid foundation of networking move into the IT security role. And I'm speaking as someone who worked as an IT security professional on the systems engineering side. I visited hundreds of companies and talked to all of their networking and all of their security people. And the people I was talking with are people that I used to talk with on the networking side when I sold the network analyzer product. So I ended up talking to the same people I've been talking to my entire career, except now they moved from networking into security. That tends to be the path. Could you take a different path? Absolutely. Are there companies that hire people off the street for security? I'm sure there are, just not a lot of them. Most people are going to have to start down at this is a great learning opportunity to be on a help desk and learn as much as possible. Meet the networking people, meet the security people, find out what projects they're doing this weekend. Are they building out a new networking closet? Can you help? Can you help pull cables? Can you help put stuff in a rack? Can you just be over their shoulder and watch them configure a Cisco switch? That's really valuable stuff, and I don't think a lot of people take enough advantage of that. So my recommendation to you is check. It's time for you to research what people are asking for in your areas. Go to a Microsoft user group meeting. Go to a Cisco user group meeting. Meet the people in your area who are actually in these roles now and ask them, I'm really interested in getting an entry-level position with your company. What are you guys looking for? They're happy to tell you because they want to have good people too. And then you'll get on their LinkedIn, you can send your resume in, and you can start that process. It doesn't happen just by blindly sending a resume in and hoping for the best. You really have to build those relationships and learn the people that are there. And I know it's a challenge when you already have a full-time job, you've got a family, but you have to make time. You have to carve out that time for those user group meetings, meet those people, get your LinkedIn going. They're going to look at you and go, well, you're not in this industry right now. You're going to get that. But I got to tell you, I'm talking to people all the time that were truck drivers, they were nurses, they were dental assistants, they were doing anything but IT. Now they're doing IT. My first job was working in the field, literally hoeing blueberry fields. And then I got a job working as what used to be, for some people, we rented videos at one point in the history of this country. I worked in a video rental store. I wasn't in IT, but you sort of get yourself in there. And once you're in the river takes you a lot of different places. You just float around and it will take you where you need to go. The challenge is just getting that float in the river. And there's a lot of different ways to go about doing that. I recommend you use as many ways possible to get that inner tube pumped up so you can get the whole process going.
So it truly is networking in more ways than one.
It absolutely is. People don't think it is. They poo-poo me. I get messages all the time after study groups saying, what is this with user groups? You've lost your mind. It's not. I have had in my industry, I've had about 15 different jobs. Some of those jobs were within the same company. Some of those jobs I went to different companies. My very first job, I didn't know anybody. I still don't know how I got that job, but I did. And it was a remote site technician job. Every job after that, I knew somebody who worked there. This is a real thing in our industry. People want to hire and they want to work with people they know and people they can trust and people they know that are going to be there on time and people they know they're going to, when you have a big project, they're going to be able to do the project. It's incredibly important. You can't dismiss that. You need to work on that side, sometimes just as much as the technical piece.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Professor Messer, and thank you for everything you do.
Thanks, Simon. Best of luck.
Thank you.
That's I think I probably say it on every study group is that people networking piece is so important. It is. And you only, for those of you in the chat room, people are going, I don't want to go into chat. I don't want to go to study. I don't want to, people, there's a user group meeting in a room with other people. I don't know what to say. I don't know what to do. You don't have to. Here's the only thing you have to do. Go to the meeting. You know, there will be people that know each other that are chatting. There will be times in the user group meeting that are set aside to grab a slice of pizza, have something to drink. There's no presentation going on. It is a meet and greet. It's designed to get you meeting other people. Just walk up to a group of people that are talking. Sip on your drink. Hi, this is me. This is where I work. Where do you work? That's good. You know, I saw your company. I read an online posting from there. You guys are hiring for this right now. You know, you should know something about those companies in your area, or you can ask, what do you guys do? I don't even know about that company. What do you guys do? You can't know everything in your area. And you can tell them, I'm someone who's really looking to get into this industry. I've been working on certifications. I've got this thing that I've been doing, blah, blah, blah. What do you guys look for? What would you recommend I do? What would be your advice to me? People are happy to tell you this. They're not there to tell you, get out of what do you mean you've done that? Get out of this room. What are you doing at this user group meeting? They're not. They're going to say, oh, I can tell you exactly, because they used to be exactly where you are. They will tell you exactly what to do. Those are the things you need to know. That's the questions you need to ask. That's it. Get people talking. You don't have to say anything. You just have to say, what do you guys do? What do you look for? What would be your advice to me? That's it. What do you guys do outside of this? You know, can I get on your LinkedIn? Can I get LinkedIn? Can I send you my resume? You know, if you guys are hiring internally, a lot of these companies give a bonus if you bring someone in with a resume. Sometimes they'll ask you, well, send me your resume. I know people that collect resumes. They've got a big stack and they send it off to HR. So if anybody ever shows up in their stack, they get a bonus. So absolutely do that. Get those things there. Back to the phones. 614 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from? Caller. 61. There
Hello?
he is. Hey.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Stanley, and I'm calling from Columbus, Ohio.
Welcome, Columbus, Ohio. Omio, Columbus, Ohio. What can we do for you?
Yeah, Ohio, Columbus, yeah. And I just called to commend you for the videos, the path quizzes, and everything that you do. I just passed my A+, and I'm so happy. I just called to appreciate you for that. Thank
I'm
you
happy
so much.
too. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now for your A+, what things did you study, or maybe what one thing helped you the most when you were studying for that A+ exam? Other than my videos, we know the videos were great, but what type of thing, what was your study method that you think helped the most?
I watched a lot of videos, not from Europe. I watched some Mike Myers videos.
Sure.
And the method I use actually is normally when I'm studying, when I'm watching this video, I turn my voice recorder on and it captures the sound. And then that sound, I just put on my memory chip and play it every time in my car. And it just stick everything to my head. So when I'm getting ready for the test now, I just keep playing those audios. And that's how I didn't even go through the checklist on the objective as you recommended.
Yep.
I just took a glance at it, but I didn't go by it like line by line by line. But those continuous were very, very helpful. So that's the method I really use. I use both audio and video.
Good for you. Well, we really don't talk about that enough, that a lot of the times we're in our cars every day. I used to have a commute that was an hour to get there and an hour back home. That's a huge opportunity for studying. That's a great place because nobody can bother you. You're in the car. You can turn your phone off and just listen to what's going on. It's a great way to do it. And I think that's a great way to study too.
Yeah, that's what I do. I just listen to the audio in my car, and wherever I'm going, I just keep playing it.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I think it was really, really helpful. The past quizzes too, they are very great. And lately I noticed that at the bottom of each of the A plus video, you have a set of questions taken from the video, and those questions are very, very helpful.
Oh, good. You know, it's something we're trying to add to the site. If you've ever gone to the Professor Messer site, I'll say that you know this, but other people may not, is I have the video there. For A+, I have questions, kind of a review set of questions underneath that refer directly back to things that were in the video. I'm hoping to add those for Network Plus and Security Plus. And then I have a transcript of the entire video that was created by a human. So if you've ever seen transcripts from things like YouTube, those sometimes are a little sketchy. The entire text of the video, everything I say, whether it's right or not, is listed there all underneath the video. So sometimes if somebody's trying to figure out where did I see that or where was it, sometimes you can just read through and find it.
Mm-hmm.
That's fantastic.
Thank you so much. Those materials are very helpful. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you for calling. I think that's one of the biggest things is everybody has a different way to study. Some people focus on the videos and that's all they do. Some people, I just sit there and read a book. I like to read books and then look at a video. Some people like to watch the video first and then go through the book. And people ask me, what's the best way to do it? It's whatever way works for you. It doesn't matter how you get that information, just get it. Get it in your brain and go through those. Yeah, that's why I mentioned that some people just go to YouTube, watch the videos. You had no idea there was a transcript and Q&A after every video. And I try to put links on the YouTube description, but we don't read the YouTube descriptions, do we? We don't go through any of that. Why would we do that? So back to the phone, 760 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Rafi. I'm calling from Riverside, California.
Oh, welcome, Rafi. What can we do for you?
First of all, I would like to thank you so much for your offers, like your course, videos, and notes. You help a lot of people to get successful in this life or this career. I appreciate your help for us. And actually, you helped me a lot when I passed my A+ certificate. I was here in America from 6 years. I tried to get job in IT career, but I couldn't. I was working truck driver. I was listening to your videos while I'm driving. I was study when I go home. And after I passed the first exam, I applied in different companies around me until I get the entry-level position as a computer support specialist. And while I'm working, I finished the second exam, and I'm now working like a year and 4 months right now in IT here, and I'm working in my Network Plus. Yeah, I'm actually thank you so much for everything, and you helped me a lot for A+. I just watch your videos, I got your notes, and I buy the voucher from CertMaster. They provide like practice exam. So I work with this practice exam before the test, and I passed. So now I'm working with a book from Cybex.
Yep.
Cybex, and I have your videos and your notes. And actually, I have a question for you. What is your recommendation for people who want to jump in cybersecurity? Like after Network Plus, do I have to go to Cisco or continue to Security Plus? And is Security Plus covers Network Plus? Is Security Plus covers the same like Cisco security, or is it different? I have to take both. This is my question.
Well, first, congratulations to you. Thank you for mentioning the videos and the work you did. But I did the easy part. You were the one having to do the hard part to really study all this material to finally get this opportunity in IT. The opportunities are out there for IT. And now that you're doing information technology, it's a crazy industry where we don't know what's going to happen in the next 10 years, but the opportunities are enormous. And I like that you're thinking about the security side of things. I had my last position was with a next generation firewall company for about 7 years. I got to visit hundreds of different companies and talk to them about what we called then IT security, now the industry calls cybersecurity, and what it takes to maintain the security of those environments. But more importantly, I got to talk with people about how did they get to where they were? How did they get into a security role? And I'll give you a couple of things that are really important about this. The first is, and we bring this up a lot, is that to get into a security role, you need to know as much networking as possible. So if you're ever thinking about getting into what they call cybersecurity these days, which is managing and protecting an organization's data, whether it's managing firewalls, intrusion prevention, setting up IPsec tunnels between locations, configuring SSL VPN, making sure that the authentication factors and methods are created properly in your organization, making sure the policies are in place. Almost all of what I just mentioned, maybe not the policy piece, but all of those other pieces all touch the network. You have to be extremely knowledgeable in switching, in routing protocols, in understanding how to engineer and architect those to be able to get very far in cybersecurity, because you're going to be putting in firewalls. You're going to be putting in 2 firewalls for redundancy. Are they going to be an active firewall? Will they be active-passive, where one takes over if the other fails? How do you know if the other fails? How does that integrate with your routers that are on the outside of your organization and the switches that are on the inside? Are your firewalls going to be doing the routing? If that's the case, what type of routing protocols are you going to use? Are you going to use static routing to do everything? That's a simple, relatively simple engineering question about designing and implementing enterprise firewalls. But almost everything about that was networking. We haven't even talked about doing the security part yet. You had to do so much just to get the boxes into the network. And that's why I tell people, if you have any interest in going into security, you need to learn as much as you can about networking. So your idea of going to getting Cisco CCNA routing and switching is a fantastic first step. Getting Cisco architecture certifications is a phenomenal step. And then you can start layering on the security. Security Plus does not go into the same types of things that the Cisco CCNA security does. The Cisco CCNA security, very focused on the Cisco products. You may want to go and get certifications that are more larger scale certifications, maybe like a CISSP type certification that really is a broader scope security to go on top of the networking knowledge. But again, I keep coming back to networking because that is the step between where most people are and where they want to be with IT security. And once you have that solid networking, it really is relatively easy to just layer on that top frosting of security on top of that. It is remarkable how much networking we do in IT security. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Also, other question, do you have a plan to add the courses for Server Plus, Linux Plus, Cloud Plus in your website later or in the future?
I have a list. It's a big list. Currently, I don't have any specific plans for Server Plus or Cloud Plus. I am interested in what CompTIA is doing with Linux Plus. I'm not making any commitments for those of you listening in or watching. Yeah. I don't know what's going to happen with Linux Plus or if I'm going to go down that path, but they're changing up Linux Plus quite a bit. They're bringing it in-house. I want to see what they do with that. I'm not part of CompTIA. I'm not a CompTIA partner. I'm not associated directly with the things that they're doing. I'm very interested in what they have there. And I'm just like you. I'm an outside third party who's looking in and thinking they're doing some interesting things there. So I'm looking at what they're doing with Linux Plus. I'd love to do all of those courses. I just have 24 hours in a day, and I'm kind of limited there. I'd love to, people in the chat room, we'd love to see Linux Plus. I would too. But it's almost a physics problem at this point. Is there enough time in the day to be able to do that? We will see. I can't wait to see what they come up with.
Anyway, I would like to thank you again for everything. Thank you, Professor Master.
Thanks, Rafi. I appreciate the call.
Thank you.
That's a great story. And it's a story that anybody can do. The reason I created this company, the reason I built this up in the way that I did, is that I came through the ranks in IT and had all kinds of jobs, crazy jobs, doing crazy things, flying internationally to talk to people, to talk about technology, to implement it, to design it, to architect it, to watch the industry change. And what an opportunity this is. And it's just getting started. We're learning new things about this industry all the time. It's a huge opportunity. And I encourage anybody who's ever thought about IT, who's just interested in what's going on. This is huge, the things that are going on. This is a great place to be. It's whatever you want to make it. You can go as high and as fast as you want to in IT. It is quite remarkable what's going on out there. Back to the phones. My neck of the woods, 407 area code. Hello, caller. Thanks for calling. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Professor Master. My name's Darren, and I'm calling from Orlando, Florida.
Oh, outstanding. I'm going to go down there this weekend. I'm looking forward to a trip.
Awesome. Great. Man, it's a thrill, really, to have found you online because I actually passed my A+ CompTIA exam just recently, but I didn't find you until I started wanting to do the Network Plus.
Okay.
And that's when I started seeing, the binaries and doing subnetting, and I saw the 7-second subnetting. That interested me even more. And so I went to that particular video, and then I just sprung into the whole Network Plus. And I'm looking to take the Network Plus exam here pretty soon.
Good.
My question is, one, I'm not a young guy. This is going to be kind of a second career path. I was in the military for 9 years. I was a professor in a college here in dentistry. It's kind of ironic that you had another person talk about dentistry, but I was a dental hygienist for the past 30 years. And I'm leaving dentistry because it takes its toll on the body when you're hanging over people all day for 30 years. So
right.
I really have been in IT to some degree, where me and a buddy used to have a business, building computers, troubleshooting, had customers, delivered computers to their home, did on-site repair. And he was really the genius. He had cerebral palsy, wheelchair-bound, genius of a guy. And I was his hands and feet. And so I learned just about everything I know from doing all this stuff with him.
Sure.
And the more I hear you talk, unfortunately, the more dumb I feel, like I just don't know enough, and I'm getting more and more nervous. You give me confidence to say, hey, get out there and do this. You're in the right place. There's a lot of upward mobility, and I'm excited about those opportunities. I did reach, dental hygiene does have a good salary and pay. So I'm a little nervous about help desk when I see we're talking $16 an hour,
right?
Things like that, or $20 an hour. So that's where it scares me. The whole, how do I jump in? I do have a little experience in the past, and I've networked some dental offices. I've helped with IT for dental offices when they had problems or whatever, and I'd do what I could and whatnot. But to be, the guy, to be the IT, you got to run in there and try to figure it all out. It makes it sound like it's just overwhelming, like it's up to you to figure it all out. And yeah, you can maybe Google something or call somebody, but it just seems like, wow, you're thrown into the lion's den and you're really just spending for yourself. I guess I need to know, one, how do you get to the point where you feel comfortable enough? I mean, I kind of understand a lot of things, but I don't know if I've got the whole picture. You know what I mean? It feels like I've got a lot of pieces of the puzzle, but I can't even see the picture yet. It's
right.
Like maybe I got the outside border, but I can't see what the picture is in the middle. I'm just really, how do I use what I've got? I think I have a lot to offer being in the military, being teaching and as a professor and being in medical fields, and having some IT, how do I leverage some of that to not start out at the lowest income level? I mean, is there a way that you can move into something without it being so
the
bottom basement?
This is a very common question from people who are moving from one industry to another, because if you're at the age you are, you've already done something in one industry and moved up the ranks to a point where financially, if you wanted to move out of that, there is a penalty associated with that, and it's one of, you just can't get around it, because when you get into that, if you move from driving a truck to move into IT, you're going to have to learn the IT part of it somewhere. People aren't going to pay you until you learn it, and there's your trade-off. The only thing I try to tell people is, unlike driving a truck where you're going to max out your pay scale driving a truck at a certain level and there's just nowhere to go from there, you don't have those same limitations with IT. The amount of money you make.
Well, that's why it wasn't dental hygiene. You can only be computer.
Right. There's a certain point where you're tapped out. So with IT, the amount of money you make is up to you. There are jobs that allow you to do so many different things. And it's difficult because, as you mentioned, you don't have all the puzzle pieces filled in yet. You have no idea. It's a pretty big puzzle, I have to tell you. It's a huge number of pieces. You don't even know how big it is yet, but it's really big. But
don't know what the picture is yet.
The picture is enormous. But you only have to really know how to fill in part of that picture. What I focused on in my career was I got into networking, and that eventually got me into security. But I tried to focus on niches of that weren't being addressed by other people. And that led me down the path further and further and further. And if I wanted to make more money, there were jobs that I could travel more, or I could do more architecture, or I could do more professional services. I really had quite a bit of flexibility in what direction I wanted to go next. But I had to start at the bottom. The first job I got in what could loosely be called an IT role, which was a remote technician, break fix kind of person, I was making, well, at the time it was $19,500. I was just out of college, $19,500 a year, US dollars. And I think after 6 months I got bumped up to $21,500. But then that knowledge that I learned, which was literally in the trenches. I was a filthy mess at the end of the day sometimes, because you had to get under desks and you had to drive across town, and there's no air conditioning in the car, and it was literally going into jail cells in some places to fix computers. So once I got that, though, I got so much upward mobility from that many different companies in my area wanted to hire me because I had that skill set. Like, nobody else here has gone into the jail cell. Nobody else has gone into those other big companies and done that kind of thing. We need somebody here who knows that. And then moved up into that position, which paid a lot more. And then moved up into managing the networks, which paid a lot more. And then moved over into a systems engineering role with the company where we were selling products, which paid a lot more. And they just took off from there. So I will tell you, you're probably going to take a little bit of a financial hit to begin with to get that foot in the door.
Right.
The advantage you have, though, is your maturity. You have an experience behind you in the military. You have experience professionally outside of the military. There's people that you have met that know what you know with because you already have some technology experience already with the computers that you've built and the things that you've done and the working with people. And that is something you may be able to build on by taking advantage of the people you already know. I'll also tell you what I tell a lot of people are moving from one place to another. If you're moving from nursing into IT, you would be the perfect IT person in a hospital. If you're moving from dental into IT, there's companies making dental software that you're already familiar with. There's company making medical software that you kind of have an idea of the things that they have to deal with. They need sales reps. They need sales reps, but they need field techs. They need systems engineers. They need people that can help troubleshoot and fix these systems in your area. Those are companies to talk to as well. And they may even start you at the help desk there and move you up, but you already know the terminology, you know the nomenclature, you know how doctors work, you know how they don't work, you understand their idiosyncrasies, you understand their frustrations. That's a very, very valuable skill set to have, and you may be able to take advantage of that when you move into IT. Or you might go work for a company that is a train company. You just never know. But you've got the flexibility now to do that kind of thing.
Well, you're really good at what you do, and just rattling that off and knowing my industry and using verbiage that I understand is pretty impressive. Well, I appreciate everything that you're doing. I appreciate your videos because they are awesome. They're interesting. I don't fall asleep. You know, you keep
I'm glad.
Engaged. And it's really interesting, and I really appreciate everything you're doing. Thanks again for everything, and keep up the good work.
Thanks, Darren. Best of luck.
All right, thank you.
That's always a challenge. People want to move out and do something. IT is exciting. IT is it's a career-changing field. There's huge amounts of upward mobility. It's finding your niche and doing something that I found when I did something nobody else wanted to touch, that suddenly I was more knowledgeable with that set of skills, and I was able to use that other places. People should do that more often. Quickly back to the phones. There were some questions in the chat room we'll come back to in just a moment, but this caller's been holding for a while with 858 area code. There we go. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm from San Diego. I already passed the Network Plus and Security Plus certifications, and I'm thinking to get Linux Plus or Cloud Plus.
Nice.
Would this also help me gain more knowledge on the upcoming certification? And I see that CompTIA has continuing education. Would this also add up as my continuing education as well?
They do. And this kind of goes back to something I was mentioning earlier, which is the goal is not to get the certification. The goal is to use the certification to get something else. So whenever our people say, what should I do next? Should it be Microsoft? Should it be Cisco? Should it be Amazon? Should it be Linux? What should it be? What direction should I go? And I will tell you, a very qualified answer is, I have no idea what you should do next, because you're the only one who can really make that decision. But what I recommend you do is to figure out you've already been through A+, Network Plus. Some people have other certifications under their belt. You have an idea of the things that interest you. Some people are really drawn to Windows operating systems. Some people are really drawn to Linux. Some people want to get as much networking as possible. There's jobs everywhere for all three of those things. So the thing that I really recommend you do is figure out what you want to do with this. And that should be your initial direction of where you want to go. I also think you should do whatever the prospective employers want you to do. That may may not be up to you. It may be up to what employers are willing to do. And if you look at the job postings in your area and every single job posting says you should have Security Plus, that's what you should do. Mm-hmm. If every job posting in your area says we're looking for someone who's knowledgeable in Linux, well, then you know you should go the Linux route, because you might have some flexibility. You might I like all this. Just tell me what people want that want to hire me. That's the best direction to go. So it's going to take a little bit of research on your side to figure out, where do I go with this? But once you do that, you can now know exactly where you're going, because ultimately you're going to get that certification and now put in that resume with that organization to get that job, or whatever it is that you'd like to do with that. Maybe it's moving up in your current position. I don't know, but you do. So I'm going to throw that one back on you and say, you get to figure that piece out, but it may take a little more research.
Oh, yeah. Because I'm working on a software development company as a help desk and technical support engineer.
Perfect.
So basically, most of our equipments are on the cloud-based AWS and Azure, and then we have some Linux stuff. So I am thinking if I'm going to get the Cloud Plus or the AWS right away.
Both of those really good. Both of those very popular. It fits in perfectly with the skills you need for your day-to-day job, but they're also skills that other people are asking for in the industry that are very popular right now.
Cool. Yeah. Might be also because Linux might be as well help on my DevOps. We always have DevOps opening on our internal company jobs. So yeah, that's why I'm also thinking about Linux Plus.
I think you've got a good combination there. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those, and it sounds like they both kind of apply to exactly the situation you're in. That's a win-win.
Cool. Thank you very much, Professor.
Thanks. I appreciate the call. That's a good situation. If you can, in your existing role, find the thing that people are doing internally and build on that, well, that first makes you more valuable as an employee. They're going to want to keep you around longer and hopefully pay you a little more. And secondly, makes you more marketable outside of your company. And in IT, one of the it's sort of the thing that the way this industry works is to really move up. We tend to have to move to different companies. It's very hard to move up within the same company for a number of different reasons. Sometimes it works out, but most of the time there's like a 3-year jump cycle in IT. We tend to jump every 3 years to whatever's there. My last job, I stayed almost 7, which was a little weird, but that was an unusual situation as it was. Plus it was just an awesome place to work. So why wouldn't I? Let's go back to the phones. 313 area code. Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hey, how you doing, Professor? My name is Adeholu. I'm calling from Houston, Texas.
Oh, welcome. Thanks for calling. What can we do for you?
Oh, please, I have currently I work in a jail, which is I work with the government, but presently there is a limited role, for IT, and they don't really pay that much. I'm trying to move to IT field, and I've gone through a lot of website, a lot of IT blogs and all that. So I'm really, really confused about what next to do. Right now, I'm thinking of, should I start with it? Because I know how to operate computers and do some little stuff, but not in depth. So I'm thinking, should I do Security Plus, or should I do like a Sales Force administrator certification, or can I do a Windows Server? I don't really want anything to do with coding. And at the same time, I'm trying to do what can really, really put my foot in the job. And I don't really like Network Plus or A Plus. So I'm thinking that my best bet is if I do a Security Plus and with Windows Server or something, will I be able to get a job? Or should I go ahead to do something in Sales Force certificate administrator, because my background is in accounting. So I really need your candid and honest advice.
This is, so in the position you're in now, is it an IT position?
No.
Okay.
It's just like a correctional officer. Nothing.
Okay, gotcha. One of the things you already have an advantage here is that you know what you like and you know what you don't like. And you and I agree, we don't want to do any coding. You and I are in exactly the same page. And one of the advantages in the IT role, and I think that the industry is, or I guess people outside the industry have sort of messed this one up, is they think everybody should be coding. No, hardly anybody should be coding, quite honestly. Hardly anybody does code, even better. And there's not, relatively speaking, there's a lot more jobs outside of computer science and coding than there is in IT. IT is much more potential in my mind for most people in most geographies. The advantage you have is you know what you like. And that's your first step into figuring out where to go next with this. One of the advantages you might have is that you work in a governmental role. If you are working for the government, there's ways that you could move from department to department within the government. So in fact, where you are, there may be a state and local government IT role or a federal IT role that's in your particular area where you would have more of an advantage moving into that role because you are an employee already. That may not necessarily be the case, but that's something you should look into to see if there are advantages there where they sort of train you as you go. That's another advantage, by the way, of governmental jobs. They don't tend to pay as much as the corporate environment does, but you learn so much more. There are usually very, very good benefits on that side, not only from healthcare, but for flexibility of the times, retirement plan. Just government's very good about the benefits side of it and the flexibility of being able to work different hours. And there's a lot of benefits there. It's a trade-off no matter where you go. There's some advantages to going a job like that, but I've always found, because I worked with a lot of state and local government, I work with federal government a lot, there's huge opportunity to learn in those environments. Government loves to train you, and they have so many different technologies that they work with. A lot of people sometimes misrepresent the amount of IT and how well the IT works in government. It's remarkable how much storage, how many servers, how much cloud-based technologies, how much IT our government is doing, and doing quite well. It's a great learning opportunity. And if somebody wanted to stay with government, there's always upward mobility there. If somebody wanted to go into a non-government position, now that you've learned all of those things, they've gone into doing something else. One of my very first jobs was in a state government role where I was in a data center, data entry environment where I did data entry and I managed data entry operators. It was very much working with personal computers and working with statistical software. And that was kind of my first foray into learning about how to keep large amounts of data, how to store it and back it up, how to keep these systems running. They trained me on how to tear apart these personal computers and put them back again. It was a great job for that. And I would never have had that opportunity without having that state job. Certainly an opportunity to do something like that. So you have an interest in Windows operating systems. Definitely start doing some training and looking into Windows operating systems, especially Windows Server. There's a huge market for people that are familiar with Windows Server. It's really about putting together a skill set that you can present to a potential employer and say, I already know these things. What do you think? And maybe Security Plus is perfect for what employers are looking for in your area. For federal jobs, employers love Security Plus. Outside of the federal government, Security Plus doesn't have the same entry-level emphasis as it does with the federal government. It's something that usually comes later in non-federal jobs. So I think you're on the right path, maybe a little more research and finding out what employers around you are looking for, and definitely think more about getting formal certification on the Windows Server. That's a great place to start. That would apply probably to every single employer you run into has Windows Server, so it makes sense they're going to want to hire somebody who has that knowledge base.
Okay. What do you think about? What do you think about between Security Plus and the CompTIA Cloud, CompTIA Server?
There are very different certifications. The Server Plus is a great start. If somebody was getting into Windows Server, they wanted a Windows certification, but they had never really worked with server technologies before, Server Plus is a good start. It gives you the basics of the technology, helps you understand data centers and the processes and procedures. Security Plus is a completely different animal with a completely different set of requirements, with a I would say it's probably much harder difficulty-wise than Server Plus. But it's certainly, as I mentioned, some employers just love Security Plus, especially federal government. That may be the deciding point for you.
Okay. Sorry, one more. The last question. Do you know anything about Sales Force administrator?
I've not. You mentioned having a background in accounting and things around that nature. That may be an opportunity to take advantage of some of that CRM and being able to.
Yes, CRM,
yeah. That's a big market where they need knowledgeable people. A lot with Salesforce tends to be programming and development and coding. That may not necessarily be what you're looking to do. Obviously, the Salesforce being that's kind of a platform as a service is how a lot of people use it, where they want somebody to customize the environment for them. It's all programming. That may not be necessarily what you want, especially since all of that's in the cloud. It's all done on their servers. And so it's more of a computer science or coding role than something like the Microsoft Server certification would be, for example.
Okay. All right. That's my question. And I think I will look into the Windows Server. The Windows Server, do I need to know anything about Linux? Because I think Linux had a kind of coding.
I don't think that Linux necessarily is associated with coding. I think get the Windows Server concept down, get that training down, get that certification down. And I think that will make it easier if you then want to learn more about Linux, if you then want to learn more about Mac OS, if you want to learn about other operating systems. I think everything can build on that Windows certification.
All right. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Best of luck, sir.
Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I think we should do that. If you have a knowledge of accounting, take advantage of that if you're moving into IT. Talk to companies that make CRM software and see if they need help desk, see if they need field service. If you have a knowledge of medicine and you've been a nurse, you've worked in a hospital, you have some knowledge of medicine. Hospitals have huge IT organizations that need very knowledgeable people. They're willing to start you at the help desk and move you up. Those are things you could take advantage of. If you are a truck driver, there are transportation companies with enormous IT requirements. So you might be able to take things you already know, and although you're not doing it day to day, if you're knowledgeable with accounting, you may not be doing it day to day, but you're working at a help desk to help other people with their accounting needs. That's the difference. If you can blend together those two things. One of my first jobs was working for an insurance company. I was in the help desk. At the time, I was right out of college. I had no idea what insurance was, really. I mean, of course, I had a business degree. I knew what insurance was, but I didn't understand the products. I didn't understand the types of products we had. I didn't understand the healthcare products, the life insurance products. There's term, there's whole life. I didn't know. So when the accounting department called me or the actuaries called me and said, we're doing this with this server and we need help, I knew technically what they needed to have done, but I wasn't able to piece together what I was doing for them. And then looking back, I realized this was a really important job. There was literally billions of dollars at stake for having this particular application work properly. I'm like, okay, we can make it work. Sure. Click, 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 click. There you go. It works. And they were so happy. And I'm like, well, good. I'm glad you're happy. But I didn't understand why they were happy. Now I get it. It helps if you can make that connection as an IT professional, because very often we're separated from the business. We're separated from the goal of our organization too much. Learning about what you do and how you are making that happen can be so helpful in what you plan on doing with your job further on. So that's why I recommend to people, definitely find out what you do there. And if you have knowledge in that already, go work for a company that does that kind of thing. My voice is still working, so we're going to go back to the phones real quick to 520. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Hello, my name is Zach. I'm calling from Dallas, Texas.
Welcome. What can we do, Zach?
Hi, I just have a few questions. So I've recently this year I finished a immersive computer science program. So I pretty much
this was underwater, I'm guessing.
Boot camps. I'm sorry.
I said this was underwater. I'm guessing it was immersive. What is that?
Oh, immersive. So it was like full stack web developer.
Nice.
15 weeks. So 0 to full stack web developer.
Wow. Okay.
So I finished that. Yeah, it was definitely one of the
that is immersive. That is underwater.
Like sticking a fire hose in your mouth.
Yep.
Pretty much.
That's it.
And so I just kind of, I'm not a very creative person, so I just feel like I've kind of fallen out of being like a web developer, like building things. So I've kind of decided to move towards cybersecurity, and I'm pretty new at all this stuff. I found your course, I bought your book and all that stuff, and I'm studying to take the SY 501
nice.
exam. And I just kind of like, I've talked to recruiters and I don't really know like where to go from there. Like I know it's kind of like a vast question. I'm just really not familiar with like what I should do. I don't know if
you're in a great geography. Did you say you were in the Dallas area?
Yes.
Okay. So you're already in a fantastic geography for anything relating to IT. It is huge opportunities in Plano. Whatever you want to do, they got offices there that do that kind of thing. Huge companies have big offices there, and they're willing to train and they're willing to do other things. I mentioned earlier in the study.
How do I
go ahead.
find myself there?
What's that?
Like, what do I need to do to find a company that's willing to train me?
Yes, and that is the secret, isn't it? Is figuring out that foot in the door that you need to do. And there's a couple of things you can do straight off the whatever you're doing right now is start doing the research in your area for those companies and what they're asking for. You should be able to look at just any overhead view of Plano, and you'll know there's 20 companies that you could choose from to find out more about, to research what job openings are at those companies, what types of jobs are they looking for, and more specifically in the job description, what do they want from people? This is also an opportunity to figure out, how do I start meeting them? And in your particular geographical area, there's a user group for everything. There's probably multiple user groups. There's probably one for Fort Worth, and there's probably one for Dallas, and there's probably one for Plano, for Microsoft, for Cisco, for Network Associates, for or McAfee, for Palo Alto Networks, for Checkpoint, for you just go down the list. There's user groups everywhere in that particular area. So there's a chance to actually meet these people and ask them the question you just asked me, which is, what are you looking for? How do I get in? I love your organization. I like what you do. I've checked you out on the web. I've seen your open positions. How do I get in the door to start learning and growing with your organization? That's all you have to ask. What do you guys want? And I will go do that and come back to you. People are more than happy to tell you those things, but you have to get in front of them to do that. There's also a number of...
And I think that...
Go ahead.
I think that's what I've struggled with, is like, I just don't know where to find someone to get in front of to say that.
Yeah, go to meetup.com and figure out Google Microsoft user group, Google Cisco user group. Find out these people that are managing servers that are on the networks. These will probably not be the people that would be hiring directly the help desk folks, but they know the people that are, and they know the projects that are going on. And they, as I mentioned earlier, they probably get a bonus if they bring your resume in and you get hired. So there may be some incentive for them to get on your LinkedIn and to request a resume from you, if only to start building those things up. And in return, you can ask them, what do I need to work on and who do I need to talk to? And can I say that you sent me? Those are really, really important things that I don't think people understand enough, how valuable it is to be able to do that. Like, I was talking to Rick at the Microsoft user group meeting last night. He said I should absolutely reach out to you and give you my resume and let you know I'm looking for an entry-level position because you have project X that you're working on right now. Let me know if you can spend some time talking to me. That's all you have to do. You may hear nothing, or you may hear, oh, you met him? Sure, come on in. Let's do this day. We can do this thing. Let's talk on the phone. Let's do a Skype interview or whatever it is. You don't know when people are ramping up and when they're not. Sometimes literally managers will come in and say, all right, we're ramping up this project. We need 10 more people on the help desk in 2 weeks. Go. Like, oh, where do we find them? Your resume's right there sitting in front of them. That's what you have to do, is find that opportunity and meet those people. The more you can name drop and say, well, it's not name dropping. You met them. You know them. You were at the user group meeting. You're going to see them next month at the user group meeting. You've already talked about the projects that are underway. That's good networking right there. That's just good street work. That's good networking of people that you could really put on your LinkedIn, build out your LinkedIn, get those resumes out there, and eventually you're going to find people keep seeing you like, oh yeah, I met you a year ago at the thing with the stuff. Yes, let's do this. It's remarkable how these things come around. You never know who you're going to see and when you're going to see them and how these things always work out. And you just have to put yourself out there.
Okay. Just got to market myself a little more. That's all.
Everybody, this is the challenge with everybody. It's not easy. It's not. It's not something you just go to one meeting and go, okay, we're done. I'm all networked. I got it. I'm all finished. It's something you really do your entire career. We're not saying that every day you need to find somebody to go to lunch with, but that sure helps. Spend some time, have some chips and salsa, find out what's going on at those places, catch them whenever they can. How can I find out? Do you have anything temporary on the weekends? How can you get in there? Find any angle you can to talk with and get to know those people. And this will help you throughout your entire career. These will be people you work with for years and years and years and years. You will see them at other groups. You will see them at trade shows. You will see them when you start interviewing other companies. This is not a one-time thing. You're really building out a networking foundation you're going to use for the rest of whatever you do in IT.
Yeah. Okay. Another question. Do you have any advice on like where to go like after I pass the Security Plus exam? What should I do?
You know, for jobs in your area that are looking, or that companies that work with the federal government, they will absolutely be interested in that Security Plus that you have. So there's extremely large.
Go ahead.
There's extremely large federal contractors in your area that would love to talk to you to put you in entry-level positions with that Security Plus. That's who I would talk to first if I had the Security Plus in my pocket.
Okay, cool. And I do hold a secret clearance as well with the government. So I think that's like very beneficial for myself as well.
That's more than very beneficial. Absolutely talk to them if you get that Security Plus in your pocket.
Okay, and I was talking to a recruiter, and she said that when I pass the exam, I'll be certified as an IAT level 2.
That's right.
Information Assurance Technology level 2.
Yeah. Yeah, this is the thing the federal government uses to categorize people.
Okay.
This is, in fact, there's a matrix on the internet that shows each one of those layers and what people are looking for. The federal government is very specific about the skill sets that people have starting out. Security Plus is one of those entry-level skill sets that gets people into an IT role. You can't have an IT role in the federal government without, at a minimum, having that Security Plus or a comparable certification. That's the starting point.
Okay.
They don't care about A+. They don't care about Network Plus. Security Plus is where they start, for better or worse. That's where they start. And that's why I'm sure that the recruiter is going, oh, you're working on Security Plus? Fantastic. Because that's what you're going to need to get in the door at this place, and she can get you there. That's one of those things where you might have a recruiter you can work with your entire career.
Yeah. Great. Wow. Well, thank you very much. I just turned on your page and it said you were live, and I was like, I'm going to call him.
Why not? You're in a great place. The advantage you have, your geography is very, very good for this. You really picked one of the best places in the country to live. So take advantage of that and know that you could stay there your entire life and move right up to where you want to be in IT, and you got plenty of places to go.
Cool. Well, thank you very much, Professor Messer, and also thank you for all the videos you make and all that stuff. It's very beneficial and very helpful. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach. I appreciate it too. Thanks for calling.
Yeah, you're welcome. Have a good day.
And you as well. That's always beneficial to be in that particular geography. The things you're able to do with those is I used to work for a company that had kind of their middle of the country headquarters there in Plano. It's amazing the number of companies that are there, the things you can do. Very quickly, before I completely fall over, let's go to the 313 area code. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, hello, sir. I called you back just to clarify. Do you offer training in CompTIA Server Plus?
No Server Plus. It's a common question I get. Server Plus is certainly it's becoming more popular for some reason, but Server Plus is not one that I currently cover, and I don't have any immediate plan. I'd love to create some content for it, course notes or whatever it happens to be. I just don't have anything at the moment.
Then if somebody is getting into Windows Server, is Networking Plus better than Server Plus, or Server Plus is better than Network Plus?
It really depends on the person who's doing the hiring. If this is to get a job, I tend to think most people would be doing entry-level jobs for someone who has Microsoft knowledge. Generally, the next step after help desk might be getting into networking. It isn't usually an entry level with networking, although there is some, but usually that entry level into networking is a higher level certification. I think the Microsoft line of certifications tends to give you a little more of an advantage on that first position into a help desk. But at that point, you're going to need to figure out what direction am I going to take this? And maybe Network Plus is next.
Okay. Then I just checked the one for the Sales Force administrator. I don't think it has any coding. The one that has the coding is the one they sell Sales Force developer. That's the one that has the coding.
Well, you got pluses and minuses. The Salesforce in general, especially Salesforce administrator even, is not a highly technical role. Most of the work is being done on the website. And usually that's one that is integrating in with the person who's doing the coding at a bare minimum.
Okay.
But that might be a good fit for what you want to do and where you're looking to go. It just depends on the organization, what they're doing with Salesforce, and considering your background dealing with accounting and CRM, that may be a perfect fit.
Okay. And there is you said there is high demand for Windows Server right now, right?
There's high demand for really everything right now in IT, but Windows is one of those technologies that every single company you see has a Windows server at a minimum. So that's one where when you walk in the door, you've got a skill set that somebody could use.
Okay. Going through like a training online like Udemy and other stuff without a certification, can somebody get a job with that?
Well, somebody can get a job with or without a certification, but having a cert tends to help a little more if you're walking in the door and you're competing with other people who don't have that certification. So it very well could be a difference. Just taking the training course helps you personally. You can at least talk about the technologies, but it may not translate into something that helps you during the job hiring process.
Okay. And one more, the last question. What are you going to is Windows Server 2012 better than 2016, or what do you suggest?
It's difficult to make a decision on that because many organizations have a very well-established 2012 infrastructure that they're running in their organization. Other companies are migrating over to 2016 pretty rapidly too. So I guess it really depends on who's the employer and what their infrastructure looks like today. Fortunately, there are not enormous differences between the two. If you're very familiar with Windows 2012 R2, you're going to do just fine with 2016. It's just an incremental difference for you. I would think the larger install base right now is 2012. Microsoft may tell me differently, but knowing what I know about 2012, I suspect that's probably a larger install base, but I'd also expect that companies are beginning the migration process now.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. From the chat room, quickly, before we go back to the phones, before my voice gives out completely, some folks in the chat room mentioning GTS Learning was purchased by CompTIA. I worked a lot with GTS Learning over the years. Will there be any new partnerships on my end with another provider? Not at the moment. I'm not talking to anybody. You never know the way these things go. I have not made any plans for any new partnerships at the moment, but you never know. This is a weird industry. Things change. I got a phone call and now things are different. So I just never know where things are going to go. How do you choose between CCENT, the Cisco Enterprise Network Technician, entry-level network technician, one of those two, and Network Plus? They're two very, very, very different certifications. They're not even comparable. They're two different things. Network Plus would be the beginning part before you take the CCENT. I would think it'd be a good primer before taking the CCENT. The CCENT is much more technical. There's a much bigger requirement on hands-on, and it's a much harder test. So I would not choose between them. I would choose whichever one was appropriate for what I was trying to do. And I know that doesn't give you a lot of insight, but if you look at the Network Plus exam objectives and you look at the Cisco exam objectives, which may take a little more research because Cisco doesn't really draw it out with the detail that CompTIA does, but you'll notice the Cisco much more technical. And I think their exam is much more difficult. There's a lot more you have to do, a lot more knowledge of the command line that you need to know cold with the CCENT. With Network Plus, it's not even close to being the same level of difficulty. So that may be something to consider. But the CCENT, people look at and go, okay, you really do know how to configure a Cisco switch now. Network Plus, you have no idea how to configure a Cisco switch. Doesn't even get into that line of things. So there's your drawing line between those two that I would think about. Back to the phones, 858. Hello, caller. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Yeah, I'm calling back from San Diego again.
Welcome.
Earlier you discussed about CertMaster.
Yes.
I'm just calling about a friend that has the old certifications for Security Plus. If he will purchase the CertMaster, would it help him renew his old certification?
This is specifically there's different products from CompTIA called CertMaster. So I will specifically say the ones that are for renewing your certification are called CertMaster CE for continuing education. So the CertMaster CE, if he has a valid Security Plus certification, but he took maybe the SY0401 exam, for example, and he's coming up on renewal, that is the product that would renew him after working 4 to 6 hours online. And it's $199. You buy it, you go through it online, it takes you 4 to 6 hours, and you're renewed for 3 years instantly.
Okay, that's great. How about because he also has an A plus and the Network Plus, like before having the one that doesn't expire?
Yep.
The old one?
Right.
Yes. Does he need to get that same CertMaster, or he needs to take another exam?
Well, those certifications go back to the old days of CompTIA. They are not currently CE type certifications. They don't expire. They also can't be renewed. So you're sort of at a stalemate there. You don't get the newest A plus and the newest Network Plus if you have the older pre-CE versions of those. If you wanted to get the latest versions of those, he would have to take the A plus exam and take the Network Plus exam to earn those. There was a time back when they made the conversion between the older Good for Life exams or Good for Life certifications and the CE certifications, where they gave you a chance to upgrade them and then have them available for 3 years. But those days they don't do that anymore. So especially since that goes back to 2011, I think it is. So those are all now not, you can't upgrade them into the CE version. So unfortunately, if you have those Good for Life, if you wanted the latest versions, you would have to take and pass the A plus exams, and you would have to take and pass the Network Plus exams to earn those.
Okay. How about the 301? Does it have CE, or he needs to take the 501?
The SY0301 exam?
Yeah. If he wants to renew it, does he get the CertMaster CE, or he needs to take the 501?
I'm doing the math, and if you took the 301 exam, I'm not sure you still have a valid certification. If he took the 301 exam and it's been less than 3 years, he can renew it. If it's been more than 3 years, that certification is no longer valid. You'd have to take Security Plus 501 exam again.
Cool. And I'm also confused. Sometimes CompTIA announce like a beta exam that you can be certified for the specific, like Linux Plus beta.
Right.
Is it the same as a CE one, or how it's different?
It is. You would earn the same Linux Plus CE certification that anyone taking the non-beta version of the exam would earn. Yes, it's sort of a scenario where they give you every possible question you could ever sit through. But many times that's the process they use. And then about 6 months later, you find out if you passed it or not. You don't learn immediately. And then if you did pass it, it's good for 3 years, just like all of the other exams.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks for calling. That's one that if you can get in on one of those betas, that could be pretty useful because it only costs $25 or $50 to take the beta exam. It's relatively inexpensive. And if you pass it, you kind of have to wait a number of months. But if you pass it, you're certified for 3 years, which is kind of nice. Kind of nice to have that there and have those there. I have a question in the chat room. I mentioned in one of the other study groups, there may not be any subnetting on the Network Plus exam. There might be, or there might not be. The amount of subnetting on the exam is minimal. You might get a question. You might get 2. You might get 3. You might not get any. You don't know. Should you spend time on subnetting or should you concentrate on other objectives? That's up to you. If you get into subnetting, you realize this is like organic chemistry. I am never going to get this. Then skip it. You might not get any questions, or you might get 1, or you might get 3. So that's your trade-off. It's in the exam objectives. It'd be useful to know it. You need to know it to do networking eventually. So it would help if you did spend the time. Does it take a little more time to learn subnetting than other topics on the exam? Yep, it does. But you might not get any questions on subnetting just because that's not one of the primary exam objectives. And it's all random. You just never know when that's going to happen. Do I have a study group once a month? I do. If you want to know when the next study groups are, you go to professormesser.com/calendar or choose the calendar link at the top of the website and you'll see when the next events are going to be. I don't know that I put the December events in there yet. I'll have to do that when we get out of this today to get those there. You just never know when that's going to happen with me. Right after this, I build the podcasts, I post them, and then I figure out all the things you told me I missed so I can go back and fix those, like do the calendar, that type of thing. So hopefully that will be something to do. Well, we've hit the end of my voice, which I'm not sure you're able to, maybe you are able to tell. We're done. I can't do any more. I'm going to fall over, but it's been a great study group after show. I thank you for being here. Thanks for being here for the first hour. Thanks for being here for the second 2 hours of sitting here. How is this happening? I would have it no other way. It's been really great. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your calls. Thank you for your chat room messages. It really is something we love to do every month, and thanks for being here with us. We'll do another one of these next month. Check in December. We'll do another Network Plus study group. Check in next week where we have our Security Plus study group. We'd love to have you here for that as well. Thanks for everything. Stick around check the website. I'll update the calendar today. You'll know when the next ones are for December. That's one of the best ways to find out when the next one will be by going to professormesser.com/calendar. Thank you for being here for this one. We will see you next time on the Network Plus Study Group.